Great. I think we are live. At least I hope so. And, oops. Okay. There we are. Wonderful. And we will get started momentarily. So just hold on for one moment. I hope everyone is well today. Today we will be talking about the film Octopussy. Oh, Mike. Hello, Mike. It's nice to see you. I'm very sorry. I've been meaning to get back to you about that thing. So, Mike, sorry for that. Thank you for your patience. I will get back to you. I hope you're well. Seth, hello. It's nice to see you. Chiggers, hello. It's nice to see you. We'll get started in a minute or so. How's the sound? Is the sound okay? Hunter, greetings. Zyrother's here. Hello. Thank you so much. Thank you so much as always. Oh. Cracker Barrel, excuse me, is here. Erwin is here. Hello. Yes. Cooper Glover is here. Hello. It's nice to see. Great, great. Fantastic. So we will get started momentarily. Thank you very much for stopping by. And the topic of discussion is the film Octopussy. So I look forward to this very much. I am looking forward to this very much because it's nice to be able to revisit this film. I'll talk more in detail about my specific feelings about it, and of course, I look forward to hearing what it is you have to say about this film in the comment section or in the live chat section. But this is a very it's a very peculiar one in the context of my fandom, as it were, of James Bond films. I say I like it, but curiously enough, I never tend to mention it when someone asks what are my top 3 Bond films. And I always wondered why that's the case, but I'll try to articulate as best as I can as to why I think that might be the case. It's nothing against the film necessarily, but it'll be something, hopefully something to talk about. Let's see here. Okay. Matt Flaherty. Hello, Matt. I hope I got that your pronunciation, the pronunciation of your name correct. If not, please correct me. I apologize. And you say, I'm new to the live chat, but I love your channel. Well, Matt, thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, my goodness. Seth, you've left a super chat. You didn't have to do so, but you did anyway. Thank you so much. Wow, I'm very honored. Thank you. And you say, happy belated birthday. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. And this is to cover your leftovers expenses. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Please, no thanks, because if our conversation was lunch the other day, I happily pick up the tab. Cheers. Octopussy, please mention the snake charmer. Yes. That you're referring to VJ. Yes, VJ. Very important role. There are many great characters in this, but oh, Seth, thank you very much. And Seth Walsh, great channel. I think I just got a notification in my feed about your Criterion picks, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So Seth Walsh and Seth Walsh's channel. Everyone's got your YouTube channels. Great, great stuff. So just, I'm so thrilled. Thank you. Thank you so much, Seth. And Erwin says, okay, Erwin, this is my second favorite more Bond behind The Spy Who Loved Me and re-entered my top 10 of best Bond films with this last viewing. Thank you so much, Erwin. This is great because this is mentioning, or this is referring to, or uh, my feelings about what I was saying earlier about how I I I like this film, or I think I like this film, but why do I not mention it in my top favorites, for example? But this is something akin to what I'm feeling, Erwin, in fact. So I thank you so much for mentioning this. Great, great. And there are so many, speaking of favorite more films behind The Spy Who Loved Me, I must say too that this has a lot of the more isms in full display and in all of their glory. And I'm referring to the well, there's a lot of more eye acting. The eyes. You see him doing a lot of this to express some kind of being phased or sudden panic or something, or sudden burst of energy, like at the very beginning in the pre-titles when he's about to uh, hit that guy when he's in disguise. He gives a salute, and then suddenly his eyes go like that to indicate some kind of rush of strength. And so that's one moorism. And then another moorism is of course, the very famous and iconic. Oh, there are a lot of those here. There are, I think, of many varying degrees. There's the very maybe quieter that there's that moorism, and then there is the full-bodied oh, and I think that comes a number of times in this film. So, and then there are also a lot of the great sounds that are used. Well, I'll talk about the great sound that's used with Gobinda. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Your comments are great. Wonderful stuff. Wonderful. Um, let's see. Zyrother says, I went into this remembering only the really bad parts, came out of it enjoying it a lot more than I anticipated. Yes, this is also very similar to maybe something that I'll try to speak to when I talk about my feelings on it as well. So Zyrother, thank you. Cooper Clever, Daisuke, I just posted it on Facebook. Thank you, Cooper Clever. You always spread the word about this. I am so touched. Cooper Clever, 1972. Oh, it's great, and another great. Cooper Glover, you are the best. Such a friend to me and to everyone here, and this and to other channels, and to the Facebook groups. Cooper Glover, my goodness, thank you so much. Thank you. Into Gray, hello. I just read your comment, Into Gray. I think you were mentioning Dead Ringers, so I just read that. I haven't responded yet. I apologize, but great comment. Um, Goodbye, Steed. Hello and good morning, Daisuke. Apologies for not getting back to you for your comment reply for Thunderball discussion. No, not at all. Not at all. Yes, the Thunderball discussion and about the cover art in particular, right? Right. So, not a problem at all. Don't no need to apologize. In fact, I should be thanking you and apologizing to you. I I made sure to mention your name, but maybe it wasn't clear enough. So I apologize for that. And I must thank you so much for giving me that stuff to talk about, because it's a very important point of cinema history, the idea of how to market these films and the poster art. And, one of the things I tend to, not maybe lament is too strong a word, but I must say that sometimes we get maybe Blu-ray art or DVD art with some release, and it tends to be somewhat photoshopped-ish, I think. So it always makes me want to or harken back to or remember or recall those films or those days with the great cover art and how it was really spectacular. So thank you so much. Okay, yes. Zyrother says, can there be too many more isms? Yes, the answer is no. No. There can never be enough. Yes, this is one of the great ones. So, yes, Erwin says, haha, yes, Roger Moore goes full, ooh, mwah, oh, and there's a lot of, on the other side of the coin too, there's a lot of, oh, James, James, and there's a lot of that here too as well. And there's a yeah. Well, I'll get to that in momentarily. I was going to mention a scene in North by Northwest, the Alfred Hitchcock film, but anyway. Yes. Okay. So just give me 1 second. I'll start in earnest. Just give me 1 second. I wanna hold on. I just need to check one more thing, and we will get started here. Okay. Sorry. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. Okay. Great. Not to mention General Orloff. There's a lot of General Orloffisms in this one as well. But anyway, okay, so just I'll go through here. Seth Wall says, "Holy cow, a contender for my favorite Bond film of all time. Wow, what a sweet distraction for an hour or two." I see what you did there. And Toro sounding like Bull, the Bond theme played by a snake charmer. And Cooper Glover 72 says, "It's got the more O's in it." Yes. And Moore's face, yes, after Magda says, that's my little Octopussy. The eye acting. I think his eyes move 3 times, like once, twice, 3 times, or something like that. So yes, exactly. It actually occurs a little bit too. There's one other line prior to that when they're drinking champagne in bed, and the glass is empty, and then she says, "I need refilling," and so there's a little bit of a Roger Moore. Oh, okay. So gets the bottle of champagne. I think it's champagne. Okay, so and Seth Wall says Roger Moore in a white tux. Yes, and only putting a sword out. Yes, and fighting on hot coals. Yes, and Erwin says it is what it is. I guess can't stop these super rich. Yeah. Okay. There's an interesting yes. Certain recent events have happened. Yes. Very interesting indeed. It's interesting how the world works these days. That's for sure. Oh, NMW Welton. Hello. It's nice to see you live. Oh, real pleasure. Real pleasure. How was Sisters, by the way? And I hope yes. Whiskey Wednesday. Thank you so much, my dear friend. Thank you. Um, let's see. Cooper Glover 72 says, "All I needed was an hour or two. Had no intention to visit this live stream." Thank you. And goodbye, Steve. Thank you. You are kind. Not at all, my friend. Not at all. I'm without the comment from you, I wouldn't even have mentioned it. So that's totally bad on me and excellent on you. So thank you. Seth says the sexiest Bond movie, the girl twirling out her clothes going down the balcony. Magda, yes, with the soundtrack to match. Sub boss's main boss's henchman. 009, backstabbing Kamal Khan. Yes. And oh, Timothy, hello, it's Timothy. Yes. Oh, thank you so much for joining, Timothy. And it's great. Yes. And I remember your comment from I think a few days back or a little maybe last week. John Williams in terms of music scores, yes. And I think I said agreed. So thank you very much, Timothy. I hope you're well. And thank you very much to everyone. And so let us begin in earnest with this discussion today. Octopussy. This is the James Bond film. This is 1983. And John Glenn directing. And it has Roger Moore, Louis Jourdain, and Maud Adams, and others in this real epic film in the franchise, in the series. Eon series, Albert Broccoli's produced series of films depicting this secret agent spy, 007, James Bond. There's actually a number of spies we see here. There's also 009, but we'll get to that momentarily. So, Octopussy. The film itself is a very, I think, intriguing and entertaining one. And so I look forward to hearing your thoughts and comments, my friends, in the live chat, which is open to you. And so please feel free to leave behind comments. There are some really great moderators here as well. Cooper Glovers, Irother, I think Damfool hopefully will be joining us momentarily as well. If anyone wants to be a moderator, just let me know and I'll be happy to make you a moderator. Uh, but uh, uh, and uh, the uh, the live chat is therefore open for you to leave behind comments. You can have a positive take on this, you can have a not so positive take on it. Everything's fine, everything is welcome, you are welcome. We like to think that we will treat everyone's comments with respect and care, even when there's disagreement. I know everyone here will abide by that because you always do, my friends, you always support me in that way, so thank you very much in advance for that. And the chat also, you can also leave me any comments or questions, so please feel free to do so. However, I will say that, just with due respect, I will most likely focus my attention today primarily on the film Octopussy. So if you have any questions for me of a non-Octopussy related nature, then I'm very sorry, but maybe I'll just skip over it. And if you want to leave behind a comment or question elsewhere, I will do my best to respond. I can't promise to be able to respond to everything with the fullest satisfaction that you might be seeking, but I will do my very best. And that also includes any questions you might have about the film Octopussy or comments. I don't claim to be any expert when it comes to this film. I come at this film from the viewpoint of a casual viewer and someone who has, excuse me, who has been watching this film for since I can remember. And so it's always been in the air and it's always been there. And it still feels very fresh and new to me because of the time period. It was 1983. I was born in 79. So it was around that time that I was beginning to discover Bond films. But by the time I became fully aware of what Bond films were, Octopussy was already made. And so but my point is that from that point, I would continually visit it in terms of my being a fan of the James Bond films overall. And so I come at this from a fan perspective. So that means I don't know everything about this film. I've tried to look up a few things here and there, but I don't know everything. But I will do my best to just speak from this perspective that I have. And from my point of view also, I'm looking forward immensely to the things that you have to say about this film. There will be spoilers, there will be some details, specific plot point details. That's unavoidable in a discussion of this nature. So if you haven't seen the film, my friends, please, I strongly suggest that you turn off this live stream and you can watch the film and then you can come back at a later date, because hopefully this live stream will be uploaded as a video after the fact on this channel. So in that instance, excuse me, please be aware that there will be spoilers involved in the discussion. So I think without further ado, my friends, we will begin in earnest with the discussion of this film, Octopussy. So, and also one more thing too, I will do my best to try to um, mention everyone as much as possible in the course of the live chat, but I am I can't keep up, or I usually am unable to keep up with the speed of the chat itself, and so um, I will try my best to stay on track. But if I get delayed, please accept my apologies. Also, if I skip over your name, uh, again, I really apologize. Totally, I don't mean it, but it just happens because sometimes I have to scroll down, or maybe, and I scroll down and I miss something, and that's totally on me. But I apologize deeply for that. I don't mean any disrespect on that note. Okay, so let's see. So speaking of that, I just want to check in with the. Okay, Seth Walsh. It's not all in the wrist. Yes, yes. Backgammon, right? I don't know. Are there any people? Is anyone here who know the rules of backgammon? Because I don't know. I've never played backgammon, so I don't know the rules of it. So they are playing backgammon, right? And with the, you know, there's all the things about. Uh, oh, I'll show you player's privilege and use your lucky dice. It's all on the wrist. Double six, and I love how Roger Moore doesn't even look down at the dice at that moment. It's very important. Yes, he knows what they will show. Eric Pieper, hello. Oh, Eric, my dear friend, hello. Damien, it's nice to see you, my friend. Caught you just in time. Octopussy is my favorite Roger Moore Bond. Yes, great. And then Seth says, alligators, tigers, elephants, more exotic Bond locales, Moore's most lovely adventures next to Spy, in my opinion. I loved watching this today, solidifying Moore as my favorite Bond. Well done. And Eric says, I recently got this Criterion Laserdisc of Goldfinger. Congrats. Congrats, still the gold standard Bond for me. This is great. Just scrolling down here. Um, okay. Uh, Goodbye, Steve. I was a bit overwhelmed by similarities between. Oh, interesting. Octopussy and the Fourth Protocol. Oh, interesting indeed. Yes. 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 The jewelry thief. Yes. Smuggling and dismantling NATO. Yes. Nuclear accident. Yes. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. All right. Gosh, this scroll. There you go. There we go. Kevin O'Connell is here. Hello. It's nice to see you. You say, Octopussy used to be among my least favorite. However, over time, it has grown on me. Suits Roger in tone and story. Thank you, Kevin. I have, maybe it's not exactly the same, but I have a similar type of maybe evolution when it comes to this. It's so interesting. Damn fools here. Forgive me if I'm a few minutes late. I couldn't get a lift in here. Yes. Uh, you know those right. You try to hitchhike and come on up. Oh, man, those kids. And I think Roger gives ready. You see him in the distance. He's like, he's, right. I don't know, but anyway. Um, yeah. So, okay. The bed looks super comfy. And this, Damien says, this and the Living Daylights could easily be a great double bill. Both are very similar regarding the main cat. Oh, very interesting indeed. Yes. Um, Similarities. And Timothy says, the West is decadent and divided. It has no stomach to risk our atomic reprisal. Yes, you're speaking of General Orlov. General Orlov, I'll talk more about him, but just to give you a little bit of what, there's some great moments in that speech that you're referring to, Timothy. Uh, I love in particular how General Orlov, Stephen Burkhoff, how he pronounces or how he emphasizes, shall I say, the words timid and the at the time it was Czechoslovakia. So he's got what is it, 5 additional armored divisions in Czechoslovakia, and General Gogol, right? What is it? What's the claim? He clings to timid and right, unrealistic policies or something. But I like how he emphasizes timid. I mean, the whole meaning of timid would suggest, in fact, the opposite way to emphasize it or to de-emphasize it. You'd want to say timid in a timid manner, but he says timid in a very untimid manner. Timid! I love that. So, anyway. Damn Fool says, I wish I knew the rules of backgammon. That's all I know. It was a joke referencing Roger and Company's never-ending game that ran for each production. It's great. CBC Legend, hello. And let's see here. Okay. Yes, Erwin says, you gotta love how Roger throws. Yes, yes, at the annoying teenagers. Yes. Yes. And Danful says, poor Martin Grace. Yes. Oh my goodness. That is just terrifying. Terrifying stuff. Whew. My goodness. But the right, in terms of the legacy of that particular sequence, and the thrills. I mean, it has some real I mean, it's truly death defying, right? Because as in exactly the way that you're referring to, Damnful, and then also it's, I mean, in that way, it's very thrilling. And I'm talking about the sequence on the train as they're going from, I think it's they're traveling from East Germany to West Germany, and then you've got the fight on top, and then Bond hanging on the side, and his shoes hit the gravel as it's traveling past the ground, which reminds me a lot of the shot in On Her Majesty's Secret Service with Bond's head, helmeted head against the side of the bobsled track there, and that the hanging on the side, that's very much, that reminds me a lot of 39 Steps, and that kind of uh, classic English thriller vibe to it. And it's also, this is this part of the film where arguably it's somewhat more serious in tone. It could be said perhaps that the first half, where we meet Kamal Khan and Gobinda, and we get the thing about Magda, and then later Octopussy, that could be said to be maybe somewhat it may be lighter in tone, although there are some very dark elements to it. Don't get me wrong. But then the second half, when we get to the bomb plot, that could be said to be very dark in tone, or let's say colder in tone. And so we have these this feeling in the air, and then in this midst, we have this extraordinary fight sequence that happens. And so I think that, and then knowing what happens in the production, as Damfool was referring to, makes it, I think, all the more just it's truly. I mean, it's quite a one feels a lot of things, I think, when one is watching that as a viewer, when one knows the information. It's my goodness, yes. Um, okay, so let me now, and then just Damfool. Let's see. Okay. Oh, and there's talk about this the eyeball eating and the souffle. Although, yes, the souffle, like he just gets one spoonful of the souffle, and then he takes it away. Right? There's no time to eat the souffle. But anyway, I don't know. I've never. I don't think I've had a course meal, dinner meal that had souffle. So I don't know what the etiquette is for eating souffle, but I would assume one would have a little bit more time to eat the souffle than what they had on screen. Did they start dinner already? Perhaps that's what it was. I'm not sure. But what was it? Gobinda said dinner's at 8. So I'd assume that they'd invite him at the time that dinner would be starting. But anyway, oh well, oh well. Let's see. Um Okay, so let me now just take a moment. I'll return to the chat momentarily, but just take a step back and speak to my general impressions of Octopussy, and then we'll go into some more detail with the live chat comments as well. So keep those comments coming, my friends. Octopussy. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is a film that I always knew about because of just the way in which. So I was born in '79, and then I, I I remember becoming first aware of the Bond films, and the first films I remember seeing, perhaps when they were coming out, were View to a Kill, and then The Living Daylight. So it was in the '80s, and so this comes, of course, in the early '80s, in the first half of the 1980s. And I also remember actually too watching, for some reason. I have memories of watching Never Say Never Again as well. So I don't have memories of watching Octopussy in the theater, but I do have memories of watching Never Say Never Again, and that's also very significant in the history of Octopussy, because, as we know, this this film Octopussy comes, in terms of its production timing, at the same time as a rival production of a different Bond film starring Sean Connery, which is called Never Say Never Again. And so part of the production history we know is having to do with the Battle of the Bonds, as it became known. In other words, the competition in terms of box office success, versus, in terms of the release of Octopussy versus the release of Never Say Never Again, and what the public would want to see. Perhaps later in the live stream discussion series, we will talk about Never Say Never Again. I look forward to that conversation very much. But be that as it may, we do have this film, I think, perhaps for a number of reasons, wanting to focus and calibrate or recalibrate and just try to deliver a type of film, entertainment in the Bond series tradition. To the extent possible and able at the time. This comes, as I say, in 1983. So the film that came prior to this is, as we know, For Your Eyes Only. And so a lot was set up in For Your Eyes Only with the 80s Bond and Roger Moore's 80s Bond and also his tenure, excuse me, under the direction of John Glenn. And so we have another John Glenn directed film. And then we also have a type of tradition in terms of the use or the reliance on certain aspects of Ian Fleming and the stories themselves. I think uh, those who are very much expert in the world of the writings of Ian Fleming will no doubt recognize that we saw a lot of the reliance and a lot of the adapting of the Fleming source material in certain ways and For Your Eyes Only, quite remarkably and quite spectacularly, in my opinion, as well. And indeed, too, in Octopussy, we get a number of reliances on certain source materials found in the writings of Fleming, and it comes in a number of very interesting ways in this film. So I think that's one way that makes this film, I think, very much calibrated to being a Bond film in the now what we understand the Eon film tradition. And it's also establishing or reestablishing or further cementing the legacy of Roger Moore as James Bond 007. There's a lot of iconic Roger Moore stuff going on here. I mentioned earlier in the chat about Roger Moore isms, his eye acting, his ooh, oh, and I say that, of course, lovingly because I'm a huge fan of Roger Moore and his depiction of James Bond, and those are a lot of those loving traits that accompany his performances in these films. And speaking of Roger Moore's performance, though, we have, I would say, a very gripping one. It's one where it involves a certain display of physicality, and I think he does it really well. There are some moments in particular where he has to hang, for instance, off of a mountain cliff top, and he's got to, you know, save Octopussy and hang on for dear life, and he shows that well, and he's got to cling on to the side of the train, or Bond has to hold on for dear life as the airplane is flying, and all this stuff, and Roger Moore, I think, handles the we know, of course, that there's a lot of stunt work involved. Of course, don't get me wrong, but my point is that the presentation, if you will, or the performance that gives us the illusion that this is James Bond doing all this stuff, I think, is handled very well in terms of the performance aspect by Roger Moore. And there are some scenes where he is actually involved in some of the fighting, the fisticuff fighting stuff. I'm speaking, for instance, of a certain scene in Octopussy's palace where certain assassins that are hired by Kamal Khan and Gobinda to essentially kill Bond but leave Octopussy unharmed. And that brings in the whole buzz, that saw weapon thing that comes in. And so when these assassins attack, and you've got the great John Barry score, da, 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 and you've got the scene where Bond fights one of the assassins, and he throws his face into the aquarium, bringing out the poisonous octopus. Just puts on his face. But anyway, my point is that that Roger Moore in that moment, he's in the moment and he's fighting with the guy, and I think there's the way that his body language registers, his physicality, the way what he does with his face and his gestures, and then he throws the guy. Not to mention the stuntman that he's working with. When that stuntman is about to get his head thrust into the aquarium there, I mean, he really goes back. You see how he arches his back backwards in such a way, and he holds it, and then boom. And I think the actual face going into the glass, I think that's a dummy. It's a different shot. But in any event, this is an example of the real great way that Roger Moore is giving us his performance as Bond. And it's a great blend of action and suspense. I think the film has been maybe criticized. Maybe criticized is too strong a word, but people, perhaps I've noticed people referring to, for example, the fact that Bond is dressed up as a clown, or the fact that there are some maybe other quote unquote campy moments to this. And I acknowledge that. I think there are a lot of campy moments to this film. It's a sort of fantasy entertainment film in that regard. And so I don't I don't see that necessarily as a bad thing, and especially too in terms of Roger Moore's performance. I think he's able to handle those elements really well. He's able to bring in and somehow, some way through the fact of his very presence alone, he's able to establish some kind of tone, or his presence is able somehow to establish a tone of the film, which allows for, I think, varying degrees of tension and suspense versus lightheartedness and comedy, which is a very rare thing indeed, and that's one of the great things about this film and Roger Moore's performance overall. But I always thought, for instance, about the clown makeup, for example. I never thought of that particular moment as being quite campy. True, I think the fact that James Bond, have you noticed he's when he gets into his disguises and costumes, like the gorilla suit in the train or the clown makeup, he changes really quickly. He changes so quickly. It's like he goes into that trailer on the US Air Base, and then what is it, 30 seconds later he's in full clown makeup. I mean, to apply that makeup on one's face and the tear, that I could assume takes a lot of time. So he's dressed up very quickly. But in any event, so that's probably the campiest moment of that for me. But the fact that he's in the clown costume itself, for me, doesn't that's not a campy moment. Actually, that's a really creepy moment. That's very frightening for me, because it recalls the opening of the film after the title sequence, and the sequence with 009 in the dark in the woods, and then Mishka and Grishka, or I should say, according to the end credits, Twin 1 and Twin 2. And so, and then the whole scene in the woods at night, and the knives, and the scary John Barry music, and the bloody clown going through the glass of the ambassador's residence, and the whole thing with the Fabergé egg and the balloon, which is also, I see the balloon and I think Schmiert-Spionum, and I think if Timothy Dalton's Bond were in the room at that point, he would have just taken the balloon and be like, "Ah, ah," you know. But that whole sequence at the beginning of the film was frightening, and 009 was in clown makeup. I think the costume was essentially the same costume, and so it creates this parallel, this really eerie parallel, because that sequence at the beginning was quite creepy and eerie. And so the fact that Roger Moore is in that getup at the very climax of the film, or one of the climaxes of this film, I think makes that moment for me a kind of a scary one. And the fact that he's just panicking, he's just saying, that bomb is set to go off at 3:45. That's 90 seconds from now, and he's just panicking. Although he has the wherewithal to give Octopussy the actual Romanov star, and so she's looking at it. And I think at the end, when they're in bed on the boat, and Bond is in such a weakened condition, you can actually see in the foreground. I didn't notice this until my recent viewing of the film. In fact, you can actually see the Romanov star hanging from one of the bedposts in the foreground. But in any event, back in the circus tent, he gets the whole panicked sense of his demeanor and performance, and he's just, "Let me go, there's a bomb in there." And of course Octopussy and Magda believe that what's inside the actual circus cannon isn't a bomb, but it's in fact the what is it, the cachet, or the case of jewels that they are meaning to smuggle. I'm assuming that their plot is they are jewelry smugglers, excuse me, they are jewelry smugglers that are trying to smuggle these stolen jewels from the Kremlin Art Depository. They're supposed to smuggle them into the West, and I assume their plot is to then, after they're smuggled into the West, then they can, I guess, do with them what they will. And so, but my point, I'm sorry, to get back to my original point, Roger Moore in that moment is deadly serious, and even when he confronts Orlov a few sequences prior, in terms of I'm more concerned about an atomic bomb going off on an U.S. airbase, and he just realizes what the plot of Orlov is, and they haven't even met except that particular moment, and so there's a deadly seriousness to Roger Moore's performance in a lot of the moments, which is combined with some great one-liners and some wonderful light-hearted moments. And so there, I think it's all here. And uh, thanks in large part to do with Roger Moore's performance, and of course the contributions of many others, and we'll try to get to those momentarily. But the that's the opening remark, I suppose, about Octopussy. And I will try to go into it a little bit later, but I did mention how I have gone back and forth on this film, to be perfectly honest. I've always said that I liked this film, but I never quite was able to articulate why. And I never mentioned this film, Octopussy, whenever someone asked, what are your favorite Bond films of all time? I never mentioned it. And so I always thought, why, if I like this film, or if I say I like this film, why do I never mention it as being my favorite Bond film? And I've never really understood that, because, uh, I mean, is it a perfect film? No, I don't think it's a perfect film. There are some aspects to it that maybe might be seen to be maybe weak, or maybe even inappropriate. Maybe there are certain depictions, there are certain cultural depictions, shall we say, that maybe might not have been handled in, say, the most appropriate way, shall we say. But that's just part of the that's just part of what this film is from the early 1980s. But that's one possibility, and then another possibility is just the maybe the overall confusing aspect of the plot. For me, I think this is a very confusing plot in terms of what is actually going on. But as we know too, Bond films are not always reliant all the time on their plots. They're just reliant, or not just, they are oftentimes reliant on on the uh, the momentum of the film going forward. And so, focusing on that, I think this has great momentum. It has a great uh, first part and second part, great characters, and so I'm going to really have to reevaluate this film and how high it goes in terms of my overall list and ranking, if I were to ever make one. But I can say that it's a film that I really hold in high regard for a number of reasons, and I'll try to get to those momentarily. But before I further risk your antagonizing your patience any further by monopolizing the conversation, I will go to the live chat. Let's see. Um, Subliminal Vibes. Hello, Subliminal Vibes. Hello. And let's see, you say, I remember you live not far from Amberley Chalk Pits on the south coast of England. That's where they filmed the mineshaft scenes and explosions. Oh, thank you. Oh, great. It's nice to see you. Let's see. Just scrolling down. Damien says, I should leave this comment till near the end. However, in case I forget, the end plane sequence is seriously underrated. Yes. Yes. Have you watched the making of the spectacle? The dummy is the real star. Um, I think the best part, yeah, it's one of the greats, actually. Yes, I agree. It's capped off perfectly by Kamal Khan's line. He says, after Bond has ripped out the wiring on the right wing, and the propeller is broken or damaged, and Kamal Khan is so panicked. He says, oh, he'll kill us all. He says to Govinda, go out and get him. And Govinda says, out there, go. And Govinda has that moment of crisis. What am I going to do? I must obey everything that Kamal Khan, his excellence, order him to do. But what is he going to do? He says, "Yes, Your Excellence." That is the ultimate uh, show of loyalty, if ever there was one. Gobinda is one of the most loyal hench people, sub villains I think I've come across in the Bond series, and so the fact that he's able to do this, and he has that moment of crisis, but then after he does it, he's ready. He's just focused on his mission, and he goes out and he's just and then the whole thing. I mean, it wasn't Bond necessarily that upped him in the end. What was it? It was that wire, and we got that wonderful. What is that? Is that um, that scream? I forget. That's not the Wilhelm scream. I'm not sure, but it's that scream. It's like and then you see the little bit of Kamal Khan looking, is like, oh, oh, and he goes back to, he just can't get that plane working, But anyway, yes, that is an incredible moment, and I love also how Bond says to Octopussy before they jump, he says, "Hold tight, jump." So hold tight, jump. And so he's and then he's hanging off the ledge there, and I always reminds me too of a film that we discussed earlier in this live stream discussion, which is The World Is Not Enough. We had a scene early in that film where Pierce Brosnan's Bond is hanging from, I think it's a hot air balloon, and he's hanging for dear life, and his shoulder, I think, gets damaged as a result of that. And here we've got some similar hanging action going on. And I would assume that part of the reason why Bond is injured at the end of the film is probably due in large part to what happened at this particular moment. So it's a great moment. It's absolutely great. And I'm I am um I think Roger Moore had a lot of those great moments, the aerial stunts. Of course, perhaps the most famous one is most likely Moonraker, the opening sequence in that film. Well, here in Octopus, we have an aerial stunt sequence that is top notch, absolutely top notch. And I think, I don't know, maybe the reason why, I mean, you mentioned maybe, Damien, how it might be seen underrated, and perhaps it is. And I think that might have to do with the fact that Octopussy, the film, has so much in terms of its endings or in terms of its climaxes. And I think that was one of the things, I don't want to repeat the actual wording, but that was one of the ways in which it was described in terms of how many climax sequences that this film has. And so the perhaps the fact that it's, I mean, we have the climax in terms of the assault on the what is it, the Kamal Khan's palace, and then we have, I'm sorry, before that we actually have the bomb sequence. So that's the bomb sequence, and then we have the attack on the palace, and then we have this plane sequence. And so we have three tense sequences essentially back to back to back. And so that might seem to be, maybe that might be one of the reasons why it might be overlooked, if it is indeed overlooked. But that takes nothing away, I think, from the actual content and value of the sequence itself, which is excellent. I agree 100%. And then Seth says, "I lose my appetite when I'm getting stared at." Yes. Goodbye, Steve says, Jordan, meaning Louis Jourdan. Yes, played a memorable villain in Columbo. Let's see here. Here we go. And then the chat just scrolls again, so I have to go back. Sorry about this. I'm so sorry. Okay, here we go. And incidentally, speaking of Columbo, I don't want to go into too much, but I think my favorite Columbo episode is the one of them starring William Shatner. But that's a discussion for another day. Yes, Damful says the horse to plane transfer in the climax is breathtaking. Always over. Yes, thank you. And I didn't mention that, and I indeed overlooked it. So thank you very much. Which is not just the plane sequence, but the fact that you have the horse riding and jumping onto the plane, the moving plane, off of a moving horse, which is incredible. Also, poor guy who was the guy who was handling the horse, right? When Gobinda and Kamal Khan, who have Octopussy captive, they're escaping from the palace. There's a quick shot where I think Gobinda just kicks the guy. Ah, poor guy. I mean, he's just doing his job. Speaking of which, Kamal Khan is ruthless when it comes to his own men, in terms of those men who are in charge of transporting the jewels to General Orlov when Orlov visits the palace earlier in the film. And those guards, we understand, after they delivered what I understand are the counterfeit, the fake jewels, back to Orlov, who we assume is going to go back to the Soviet Union and to the Kremlin art depository. Then those guards are going to be assassinated or killed by Gobinda, and we understand later that the people that are hanging in the freezer that Bond enters into when he's trying to escape, those are the same guards. So we understand that Kamal Khan is ruthless when it comes to his own men, and he doesn't care. All he cares about himself and probably Gobinda. Although I don't know, that's an interesting thing. I don't know how much Kamal Khan cares about Gobinda. I know that Gobinda is very, very loyal to Kamal Khan, but I'm not sure if it's reciprocal. That's perhaps a question for another day as well, or perhaps for today. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think Kamal Khan is as loyal to Gobinda as Gobinda is to Kamal Khan? I don't think so myself. Kamal Khan seems to be really egotistical and very into himself and only himself. So it would seem like if the moment came where Kamal Khan needed to get rid of Gobinda in order to further his own advantage, then I think he would do so. I think that Kamal Khan sees Gobinda as being, it serves his purpose if Gobinda is there, because Gobinda does all the dirty work for him. So, but anyway, let's see. um, Oh, Oscar. Hello, Oscar. You said, do we ever see the helicopter that's on the cover of the special edition DVD? I only remember Q on a hot air balloon that should have been on the cover. I think this is the helicopter, if I'm not mistaken, that takes Bond after from he travels from England to India, and then this is the helicopter that takes him then there, and then we see it leave, and then Bond enters, and then we see him meet VJ, and VJ plays with the James Bond theme out in the open in the universe. Charming tune, right? You do take English money, only gold sovereigns. And he said it was a poor cover because he hates snakes. And I love how he just leaves. VJ leaves, and the snake just escapes and just goes off. I mean, it seems like a pretty, I don't know. That's a pretty dangerous situation to be in. If I were in that crowd, I wouldn't want to be there, because that means that there's a snake that's just out there free and loose. Probably very dangerous, although I'm assuming very dangerous. But anyway, um, so there we go. So let's see. Oh, okay. So speaking of that, let me now just go to the plot, or what I think the plot is of this film. And as I say, it's a pretty hard to follow plot for me. So if you have any corrections to make as to what I say, then please feel free to correct me. So we start with, okay, so here's one thing that's really important to point out, I think. The pre-titles, which is this whole sequence involving some kind of explosive device that's going to be that needs to be listed on, or that needs to be affixed to the inside of a plane of some sort. And so this is the pre-title sequence. We understand this is set in Cuba, on some kind of military base in Cuba. And so Bond, we assume, is assigned to destroy this base in some form under the Toro disguise, although we realize that the disguise is broken and he is discovered. And so plot one fails. And then plot two, or the option two, which is the use of this plane, this mini plane, to escape. And then lo and behold, rockets are fired. I guess it's heat seeking, I think. And they follow the plane in this really incredible sequence, which leads to the explosion of the hangar with Toro inside. I love the care that the filmmakers have taken just to give us that final close up of Toro, with that, and then boom, the whole thing explodes, and it's a spectacular explosion, by the way, in terms of it's the tile work and the right and the things that we can achieve in terms of right the these sorts of that I understand as a model, I think, and so the it's a spectacular looking explosion. So there are a lot of these great explosions that we see. I mean, For Your Eyes Only, there was the great explosion, spectacular explosion in on the dock there, and there's also some great explosion pyrotechnic work in films like say 60s Casino Royale, for instance. But that's a discussion, as I say, for another day. And so anyway, we have the sequence, and then there's a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of romance, there's some humor, and there's even the whole thing with the Bond pulling the parachutes of the guys who have the guns trained on him. I love that moment too. There's a lot of parachute pulling antics in Bond films. We'll see, or we have seen, parachute pulling antics in a film like say The Living Daylights. In that instance, that was Bond trying to save himself from a falling and burning truck. So he just pulls it, and then boom, he's able to escape. And then there's another parachute pulling moment, a very important moment that occurs in the film with Pierce Brosnan called Die Another Day, in terms of very key character and the parachute and the pulling. So I always like to think that there are all these connections. And incidentally, it's very interesting to wonder how Pierce Brosnan would have acted if he made his own version of Octopussy. I'm not sure. It's very interesting. He would have been, at least in that scene where Bond is hanging on the cliff top at the very end. You can imagine Pierce Brosnan doing that, like that wonderful chin acting. So Pierce Brosnan and his Brosnan isms has the chin and the running, where Roger Moore, we know, has the eye acting and the ooh, and there's a lot of that here as well. But here we have the great way that this sequence opens up. And I should say too that this is, I think, quite historic in the Roger Moore run of films, if I'm not mistaken, because all the way up to now in the sequence of Roger Moore films, beginning with Live and Let Die, The Man with the Golden Gun, The Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only, the the title sequences, the pre-title sequences, have usually had some kind of tie-in, either to the plot that is to follow in the main body of the film, or some kind of direct reference to past James Bond films. So what do I mean? So for example, Live and Let Die's pre-titles have direct reference to what happens in the main body of the film. Same is true for The Man with the Golden Gun. Similarly with The Spy Who Loved Me. And also similarly with Moonraker, although Moonraker 2 has its own little set mini adventure within it. The sequence within For Your Eyes Only is probably the one-off in this sequence, because that's one where arguably the events in the pre-titles have nothing to do with the stuff that follows in the main body of the film. But what could be said about For Your Eyes Only's pre-titles is that it does have direct links to past films. For On Her Majesty's Secret Service is the big one, and also links to Spectre and Blofeld specifically. And so in that way, it does have linkages with something outside of that part of the film. Here in Octopussy, what we have is, right, a real pure, hermetically sealed mini adventure. It has a beginning, middle, and end. And as far as I understand it, nothing that happens in the pre-titles has any consequence in terms of the rest of the film. So it's a real mini adventure, and that's very much like the mini adventures that we saw in films like not Goldeneye, but Goldfinger, and also Thunderball that we discussed earlier. And so I like that very much. So that's a neat little establishing thing. And just to round out the conversation in that, we get a similar type of mini adventure type of thing in A View to a Kill, although there is one element in terms of the microchip in that pre-titles, which is part of the plot of that film. So in fact, Octopussy, in that view, could be said to be the true one-off in this pre-titles arrangement, which I think is very fascinating. And then it leads into and then it leads into the the very lovely song, "All Time High," Rita Coolidge, "All Time High," and the very mellow tone, the soft spoken tone that it gives, and I really like that. And this is a period of James Bond films, the '80s, where I think this was pretty common. I mean, we got a lot of these lovely songs starting from, I should say, the late '70s with the film "The Spy Who Loved Me" and "Nobody Does It Better." These sort of ballad types of songs that are in the major key, and they have a slow beat to a slow as in a tempo, and but it serves the film very well. It has a very romantic mood to it, and I think "All Time High," I understand, is in that mode of James Bond song, and I really love this. And I think now we get a lot of the minor key brooding song. There's nothing wrong with that per se. I enjoy the James Bond songs each in their own way, but I just want to say that I would welcome the day where we will get one day a James Bond song that is in the major key and that's a slow like love song. That would be really great to have again. I don't know. I uh will is a song like, I don't know, is Skyfall, is that a love song? I don't think that's a love song. Like the writings on the wall, I don't think that's a love song either. Have there been any, gosh, are there any love songs in what was the last love song that's a James Bond song? Is All Time High the last real one? I probably it is, right? Because the ones that come after this are films like View to a Kill. That's a View to a Kill is probably my favorite, but I wouldn't call that a love song. Uh, I'm talking about the main songs. I'm not talking about the songs that are used in the end credits, or something like If There Was a Man for Living Daylights, although that is very much a romantic song. Incidentally, I forgot to mention, and I'll mention it now before I forget. Um, uh, s- uh, Someone said, what are some of your favorite romantic films? And I think I think I might have mentioned The Living Daylights, because I think The Living Daylights is such a romantic film, and that 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 love story between Bond and Cara Malloy, wow, it's so romantic, and it just augmented so beautifully by the Pretenders version, or the Pretenders performance of If There Was a Man. So that's great. But anyway, this is going back to this song, All Time High. Of course, probably there was certain issues with the title. It's curious that we have no mention of the title anywhere in the song itself, in the lyrics. So that's interesting. Um, but the lyric itself, I think, is it's very romantic. Uh, it's very suave, and it's very warm, and it's very welcoming. And I love the moment where you have Roger Moore's image, and you have the arms, the many arms uh, embracing him, so to suggest the octopus motif. And then there's a moment in the song too when it goes into that lovely moment of uncertainty, I would say, and says, "So hold on tight, let the fight begin." And that way that it ends the note on the word begin, it just has this air of uncertainty. It doesn't have a finality to it. I'm not a musicologist, so I don't know what the correct term is, but it ends in a minor chord that is very, I think, uh, it leaves us with a sense of yearning and tension, I would suggest, which is great. I love that moment. In fact, that's probably my favorite moment in the song. And they have the little twangy guitar in the background. So, hey, that's quite a great song. That's another underrated one, I think. But this is right. Already we have a lot of stuff here that's either being established or that's being further solidified. Speaking of establishing things too, this is also when we get to the M scene. We have to remember that this is Robert Brown's. Essentially, he's now M, because we didn't get the M role for certain reasons back in the prior film uh, of For Your Eyes Only. And so we get Robert Brown's M here for the first time. And so and there's a certain no nonsense about it. No one saying, oh, there's nothing like, oh, you're the new M or something. There's nothing. It's just uh, down to business, and that's great. And I love that. There's this idea too of a certain. This is further helped by the fact that we had a mini adventure with the pre-titles, and we have no nonsense, back to business with M and Frederick Gray, and then Fanning, and so. And then talking about the auction at Sotheby's and then the Fabergé egg. So that's great stuff. And then we get into the plot with the egg. And the egg, we understand, was taken by 009, who was assassinated in Germany by these twins who we will figure out later are Mishka and Grishka. Incidentally, I mentioned it before, Twin 1 and Twin 2. What's the deal with the credits? Why are they called Twin 1 and Twin 2? Why not give them their names, Mishka and Grishka? Oh well, oh well. But anyway, so we have this idea of the Fabergé egg, which is a counterfeit. It is, according to it's a near perfect counterfeit. A real, authentic Fabergé egg, which is the basis of this counterfeit, is now going to be auctioned off at Sotheby's. So we have a counterfeit that was taken by Double One. So that's one of the eggs, and then we have this real egg that's now being auctioned off, and then we see Kamal Khan there in the audience. But before that, we understand that something is afoot in the Kremlin art depository, and something is afoot with the Soviet military. And then we have the elements of Gogol, who seems to be on the side of wanting to support nuclear disarmament talks with NATO. But we have on the other side of that coin General Orlov, who wants instead, he doesn't want to, in his words, cling to timid, unrealistic policies, or timid unrealistic policies, because he has a number of armored tank divisions, including 5 in where? Czechoslovakia. And so we have two dueling viewpoints within the Soviet military or forces, but we understand too that Orlov seems to be adopting a very aggressive approach in terms of a military strike that would result in the conquest and takeover of certain territory in Europe, in Western Europe. And this would mean nuclear war, because we are still in the age of the Cold War. But then, of course, Orlov counters, as Timothy, our dear friend, reminds us, the West is decadent and divided. And so that is the whole point. But that's probably not all. There has to be more to the equation than just simply assuming that the West won't retaliate, because they would, in terms of a standard military scenario. And so what does that mean? Okay, so then we get back to this whole idea with the jewelry. And so we understand from Lemkin, and then one of the twins, I don't know who it is, I don't know if it's Mishka or Grishka, I'm not sure, but maybe it's Grishka, I'm not sure, because Grishka, if you recall, no, it's probably Mishka, I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, so one of them and Lemkin are in the depository. And Lemkin, right? He's now trying to make these counterfeits of all these jewels, we understand, that are now housed in this depository. Now, the assumption being that Lemkin the real Fabergé egg was housed in the depository, the art depository. Lemkin, who works there, made a counterfeit. I'm assuming he works there. He made a counterfeit of the counterfeit copy, a paste copy of the egg. He kept it there, and then the real egg, through some circumstances, was then brought over to the West to then, through some steps, then be subject or put on for auction at Sotheby's in London. Okay. Then we understand that maybe through some plot, 009 took this fake egg, and then he tried to escape, but then he was killed by the twins. Okay, so we have all these questions. What is going on with these fake eggs, these real eggs? Who is selling the real eggs? We're not sure. My assumption is we find out later that Octopussy and her empire, which we understand is made up of this octopus cult, and also she has interests in shipping, hotels, carnivals, and circuses. So that's a real great combination. And so through her network of business, legitimate business interests, we assume that she is involved in a jewel smuggling caper, wherein she is in cahoots with Kamal Khan and General Orlov in order to get all these real jewels and then smuggle them over into the West. At the same time, there needs to be the replacement of these real jewels with fake ones so that the authorities won't know that they've been stolen. So I'm assuming that earlier on in this caper, the Fabergé egg in question was one of the real jewels that was smuggled over into the West, while the fake one remained in the Soviet Union, only to be stolen by 009. And then once the egg was smuggled over into the West, some seller, I think it's Octopussy, although I can't be sure, some seller wanted to put it up at auction, assuming maybe wanting to get some profit. I don't know if it's really the case of wanting to manipulate currency. I'm not sure. I don't have enough details of the film in order to make that kind of guess. But in any event, I think I would assume my best guess is that the seller is Octopussy. Kamal Khan is there with Magda to observe. Maybe he's the seller. I'm not sure. Either Kamal Khan's the seller or Octopussy is the seller. I'm not sure. I don't have enough information, but I think Octopussy is the seller. But we then realized that because the fake was stolen, they need the real one back in order to replace it, because there's going to be an inventory check. And so word gets out to Kamal Khan, who he later realizes in cahoots with Orlov. Kamal Khan's order is to get the real egg back, and so he has to get the egg at Sotheby's, which leads to that great standoff, the auction standoff between Bond and Kamal Khan. And incidentally, I don't know about you, but that is a great. Okay, I'm gonna display. Okay, this is just a regular just notebook. Okay, and let's see. What do I have here? That's of okay. Oh, right. Here we go. So this is my what do you call it? The Apple iPod thing, the case. It looks like an egg, but this is what I'm referring to. So remember when Bond is sitting there at the auction, he's like, show me, he's engaged in the auction battle. He has the egg in his hand, he's got the guidebook, and he does this, right? And then that is meant to be the moment where he switches the eggs. The real egg is on auction, he does this, and then that's the moment we assume where he switched it with the fake egg that 009 got. And then he's able to say that the fake egg is the one that Kamal Khan goes off with. That is amazing. I don't know. Is anyone able to do that? Is anyone here a magician or something? Because I don't know how he could do that. That's a big egg. All eyes are on him in the room, and yet he's able to get away with it. Brilliant stuff. I know it's a movie, I know, but it's brilliant in the context of Bond. But and then the fake egg then goes off to Kamal Khan after he's paid £500,000 for it. And then it's a fake egg. No, I'm sorry. It's he goes off with a fake egg, and then we understand that maybe he understands that it's a fake egg later. Now, when Bond then confronts Kamal Khan in India, the backgammon game, he shows the real egg on the table, and that's meant to be a signal that something is afoot. And so then Kamal uses Magda in order to seduce Bond and then steal the egg. And then not only does he seduce Bond, or Magda seduces Bond, or not really seduces, because Bond kind of knows what's going on at the same time. Magda steals the egg, gives it to Kamal. So at this point, we understand that Kamal has both the fake egg and the real egg. Okay. But the real egg we know is real because Q has put in a little homing device / microphone inside the real egg. We know this is the real. It's not the fake egg. It's the real egg. So we've got the real egg with the microphone chip in it, and we've got the fake egg that Kamal got at Sotheby's. And then Gobinda goes in there and just does a number on Bond. And then we've got the whole sequence with the Octopussy and then Kamal. And we go back to Kamal's palace. And then we have the whole thing with the souffle, the 1 minute souffle, and then the eyeball. Okay. And then we get some Orlov visits. Orlov and Kamal are talking in the basement or something. And this is where they say that we've got we've got this back, the real egg. And Orlov does something really curious. He takes the egg, which is real, and he thinks it's the fake. And he says that this fake has, has caused us enough trouble, and he smashes with his pistol. And you see that Kamal Khan is, oh, what has he done? I think Kamal Khan realizes that that was the real egg, because, and also he sees inside we also know it's the real egg because we see the microchip that he picks up. And he says, "Get Bond." And so at this point, I'm totally confused. Kamal has both of the eggs, right? And so he, why didn't he give? Uh, or I guess he did. I'm not sure. I guess he did. Oh, actually, no. Let me take that back. The fact that, um, the fact that, well, again, this is really confusing. I'm not sure because why would Orlov think that that was the fake when it was in fact the real one? Kamal already has two eggs. We can assume, therefore, that Kamal gave Orlov the fake egg because Orlov needed the egg back. So he gave Orlov the fake egg. Kamal intended to keep the real egg, but Kamal said to Orlov that this is the real egg. I'm keeping the fake egg. And then so that's why Orlov said, "Oh, this is a fake egg." Then boom, that's why he thought it. So maybe maybe Kamal was trying to double cross Orlov. Who knows? I have no idea. I have no idea. But that's probably for me, the best explanation as to why Orlov would think that the real egg was the fake egg. In fact, it was the real egg, and he smashes it. Okay. That's the end of the eggs, as far as I understand it. Then Bond escapes, and then we understand here for the first time we get mentions of Karl Marxstadt. And Karl Marxstadt forms this huge important thing that we only realize is important later because, Karl Marxstadt will be the place where some kind of handover will take place. In other words, the plot will develop wherein, okay, Octopussy thinks that she's getting real jewels, and her job, we think, is she's going to smuggle real jewels from the east into the west. While this is going on, Kamal and Orlov have a deal wherein they will have a bomb that will be given over to Kamal and Octopussy, not Octopussy not being aware of it. An atomic device will be given over to them in the east, going over into the west under the same smuggling operations. The case of jewels will be replaced with the bomb. Again, Octopussy is not aware of this. Only Kamal and Orlov and Gobinda are aware of this, and the twins. And so the point is, the Orlov and Kamal want to double cross Octopussy because they want to use Octopussy's operations in order to smuggle the bomb into the West. Okay. The reason why they want to smuggle the bomb into the West is because Orlov has a plan to explode this device onto on a U.S. airbase in West Germany, which will then, we assume, have the long-term effect of wanting the West to go forward with nuclear disarmament because it'll be seen as this terrible nuclear accident and tragedy. Many innocent people have been killed, their lives have been lost, and so this will cause the disarmament of the western border, which will then allow for General Orlov and his military strike, including what? 5 additional units where? In Czechoslovakia. And then he will have his military strike, leaving the West open for his attack and control. So the bomb device must be set off in West Germany on this U.S. airbase. In order to do that, they will double cross Octopussy. And as icing on the cake, Orlov will hand over to Kamal Khan the actual jewelry. So the jewelry that was meant for Octopussy will actually be taken by Kamal Khan. So Kamal Khan is actually double crossing Octopussy twice. First by taking the jewelry, but in fact, but also more significantly by allowing her to die in the explosion. So that's a double cross, or not a double. It's 2 double crosses. So that's the plot, and then Bond comes in and then tries to save the day. So it's I think it's for me it's quite a confusing one, but uh, at the same time, a lot of the plots it's a lot of to do with what's known as a MacGuffin. In other words, the plots themselves aren't always the most important thing. What's important is the momentum, the feeling of momentum forward. And even so, I say that it's complicated, but in fact, maybe it's not as complicated as one might think. I mean, I think the plot for A View to a Kill is really complicated. That's probably for me one of the most complicated plots. I still have no idea what's going on in a lot of A View to Kill, like the whole thing of why do you need a double earthquake, what and so, but in any case, we have the intriguing elements that are introduced, and indeed, the whole thing with the Fabergé egg is introduced primarily because of the property of a lady, and we have the whole thing with Octopussy, which is the interesting character development in terms of the short story Octopussy and the story of Dexter Smythe, and details from Moonraker, Spend the Money Quickly, and so and other tie-ins to Fleming's writings. So this is another way to propel the plot forward, and we understand that a lot of these details need to be there. And maybe it's taken from a lot of places, which might give it a sense of needing to connect things neatly and tidily. Is it done neatly and tidily? Again, that's for you to decide. I'm not sure if it's done as neatly and tidily as it might otherwise have been, but in any event, it works. Somehow it works. Still, that point about what Fabergé egg, why did Orloff think that that was the fake egg? Maybe that's an indication that Kamal was trying to double cross Orloff. But oh well. Okay. So, in any event, that's the plot of Octopussy, I think. So, going back to the chat here. Um, let's see. Sorry, I'm going to skip around here. Rider rated 18. Our dear friend is here. Hello. Let's see. Jay Williams. I'm very behind. Has he reviewed Casino Royale 1967? That movie sucked. I haven't I haven't discussed it yet. It'll hopefully it'll come up again. Whatever, we have a number of titles that are remaining, so it's nice to see you, by the way. I hope you're well. Let's see. Okay. Rider rated 18 says the one gentleman on a bicycle during that chase, yes, was actually some local man just riding his bike. Yes, yes, there's a shot where there's a man riding his bicycle through the vehicles as the people are fighting. And that was a real person, and we understand, not a real local, not a stunt person. Amazing. Incidentally, that's a moment too where you have VJ and his tennis, and he's fighting the henchman off with the tennis racket, and we have the shots of or the sound effects of the tennis ball, and the people in the crowd are going like this and going like this. So that's some visual humor there. Um, excuse me. All right. Okay. Let's see. Jared is here. Hello, Jared. I hope you're well. Nice to see you as always. Um, Cooper Glover says, yeah, Daisuke, the clown makeup and costume seems to take no time at all for him to put on. Yes, and also the speed with which Bond is able to get out of that gorilla costume before Gobinda slices it in half. Not just that, he's able to get out of the gorilla costume without anyone noticing that he's undressing out of a gorilla costume. That's amazing. So the speed and the dexterity with which he's able to undress out of that gorilla costume. That's amazing. Yes. Yes, Rider Rated says the opening scene with 009 is very well done. I agree. I agree. Damien says Jordan was originally eyed for Drax and Moonraker. Glad he did Octopussy instead. Both Lonzo and Jordan, terrific actors of their time. Um, yes, and Damful says with great misdirection because we didn't know that they're twins at first. Yes, that's a great point. And then when we see that, and that's when the Barry song, the theme, not theme, but the Barry music kicks in. That really frightening. Da, 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 da. And we got some physical fight prowess from 009 there. which is great. And I love the bit where they're later on in the film, they're Gobinda and Bond are fighting on the top of the train, and this is after, it's after, I think it's Mishka, after Mishka has been killed with the whole cannon hitting him on the head earlier, and Bond is now dressed in a red shirt, right? What color shirt? He's wearing a red shirt, right? And bang, 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 shoot in there, bang, bang. He's wearing a red shirt. Anyway, so he's wearing a red shirt. And he's fighting Gobin on top of the train, and then the brother comes up, and he's so happy. He's like, Mishka. He's so happy, and then he turns and he sees Bond. He's like, suddenly his face is, "Ugh," and you realize, or you understand that he understands that his brother has been killed, because as they're fighting and they fall off the train, I think in when they fall off the train, do we get another Roger Moore ism, like, oh, right? I know we get one when he falls into the water, and then the alligators are there, and I know when he's jumping on the hot coals, it's not a oh, but it's oh, 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 right? I know we get that, but do we get one too when he falls off with, I think it's Grishka, the train, and then we've got that replay of the woods, and it's like 009. He's not dressed in clown makeup, mind you, but still the same music, and it's the same decor and setting. And then he says, "This for my brother," and then Bond has the thing with the door handle. Is that a handle or is that a rope? It's an like you pull the rope, and then it does the door, and it opens the door. It's an interesting thing. Do they have that? I'm not sure. But anyway, I've never seen a rope open a door like that. But anyway, so he pulls the rope, it opens the door back, and he takes a knife, and then uh, he's able to take care of, I think it's Grishka, and he says that's for 009. So this is interesting too. We understand that based on this information, 007 realizes that this was the person who assassinated 009. I'm not sure how he knows this. Was something spoken off camera, or something like that, because there's no indication that 007 would know how 009 or who actually killed 009. But still, we know, and I think, again, suspension of disbelief, as I think Damfool was mentioning in the chat earlier, right? So anyway, this is meant to be revenge for 009. So, and indeed it is. So that's it. So that's the end of Grishka. I hope it's Grishka. But anyway, yes, that moment where he's on the train saying, Mishka! Yeah, that's great. He's so happy. It reminds me of that moment when we were talking about Thunderball, and the character Vargas, and when they're it's outside the Disco Volante at night, and they're fighting Bond underwater, and then they see Bond's still alive, but Bond tricks them by undoing his air tank, and it goes up. I think it's the air, and he's like, "Oh, he must have hit him with the propeller." And Vargas is so happy. Oh, let's go back into Largo. So you have this moment where you have these hench people are very happy. There's a innocently happy in these moments, and I think this moment too of Grishka, who really is so happy to see his brother. Yeah, that's a great moment. Anyway, yes. Okay. Yes, Seth Walsh says in out in out. Yes, so the rowing. Yes, yeah, and it's innuendo aplenty. Yeah, that's there's a lot of that type of double entendre innuendo going on here. So the rowing of the of this of this boat, and come on, girls, right? In out in, yeah, and there's this way in which the film ends, and Bond is in bed, and he's injured, and he's got his hand and leg in a sling and cast. And Octopussy says, "Oh, I wish, what? I wish you weren't such a weakened condition." Bond's so happy, like, "I'm not." He's like, "Oh, James," and then we cut back to the shot of the boat exterior, and we hear Maud Adams Octopussy, James, and then and it goes back, and we see the rowing. So we see the in out rowing action, which is cut here, And then that's the way it reminds me. There's a very famous sequence in North by Northwest involving the main characters and a train going into a tunnel, and so there's something similar going on, I think, with the way in which the editing is occurring with the way that the film Octopussy ends. But anyway, there is a lot of double entendre innuendo here, that's for sure. Let's see. Giz Mordor, here's your hello. You say, hi all, very happy to be here. This is the first time I've been able to make one of these live streams. I finished rewatching the film an hour ago and I loved it to bits. Top 5 Bond for me. And then Damien says, welcome Giz Mordor. And I indeed echo Damien's sentiments. Welcome and well done. Thank you so much. Thank you. Or Erwin's saying, the one part I really dislike about Octopussy is the money penny scene with Penelope Smallbone. Yeah, Penelope Smallbone. I mean, I think we don't. That's the only time we see the character. We don't see the character again. And you're right. It doesn't give us room to. It doesn't give us room to see the money penny Bond relationship kind of really plays itself out nicely. I would probably think that the best interactions between Roger Moore's Bond and Lois Maxwell's Moneypenny occur maybe in Live and Let Die. I love their interaction there. It's a bit frosty in The Man with the Golden Gun. But I think that's due to Roger Moore being very, very down to business. He's really into his particular mission. And so, Moneypenny has that great, they didn't find the bullet, darling. So he's pretty chilly there. And then let's see, there's a little bit in, maybe not so much in Spy. Moonraker, there's a little bit of banter there in terms of the whole thing about Moneypenny not necessarily believing what it is that Bond, I just actually was thrown out of an airplane without a parachute. Oh, really? You better, so uh, that that's continued on, I think, through a number of their interactions. And then For Your Eyes Only, perhaps For Your Eyes Only and their interaction there, that's probably the best of the bunch, right? This is, I mean, no offense to the character of Smallbone. I'm sure if Smallbone had been given more time to develop, I think that would have been an interesting dynamic. But Moneypenny is such a beloved character, and then we have A View to a Kill, which has the interesting I was going to say foreplay. I don't mean that. The interesting dynamic between Bond and Moneypenny, with the racetrack and Moneypenny reacting as emotionally as she does by the end of that film, and so that's a very tender moment as well. So I think that the scene between Moneypenny and Bond in For Your Eyes Only is really good. Perhaps in terms of Moneypenny moments, maybe it's that, and also the way that she's reacting in a very key sequence, a wedding sequence in the film on Her Majesty's Secret Service, I think, is also one of the great highlights. Yeah. And also, You Only Live Twice. One of my mom's favorite moments is when they're saying, the what is it? The code word is "I love you." Repeat, please. And yeah, my mother, when she was alive, she'd always get a big kick out of that. And and when Bond is talking to, the Aki, Akiko Wakabayashi, the sumo match, he just turns to her randomly and says, "I love you." You think about it, that's probably the worst type of cover code phrase. I mean, I understand in spycraft, these code phrases are meant to be throwaway lines. They're not meant to be conspicuous at all, and so that's why. Oh, that's a charming tune. You do take British money, only gold sovereign. That's kind of innocent. Or do you have a match? I use a lighter. Better still, until they go wrong. Exactly. So that's also some code language that's pretty innocent. If someone says some random thing to a stranger like "I love you," that's, I don't know, that's a little bit too conspicuous, or potentially too conspicuous. But anyway, that's "You Only Live Twice." But here, yes, I think the cover is what the one that they give VJ and 007. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, so Moneypenny. So the Moneypenny scenes. Yeah, yeah. It is what it is, I suppose. It's not my favorite, but I don't know. I think Penelope Smallbone as a character could have had potential, but I don't know. It's sort of the same thing too with Moneypenny and during the Timothy Dalton era, and just characters that are there but just are like R or something. John Cleese's R. They just appear in a film or two films and you never see them again. And so it would have been interesting to see how the characters could have developed over time. It just was not enough room for them in the films, unfortunately. So okay, just J Williams, sup dice game. I'm doing pretty well, J Williams, and it's nice to see you. Yes, Damful says. Oh, I lost the comment. Luigi's here. Hello. Erwin is Gobinda's like odd job, willing to die for his boss or excellence. Yes, um, that's right. Kabir Bedi. And I love Kabir Bedi's comments in the documentary on the making of Octopussy. He says he's like the jaws of Octopussy. And incidentally, Kabir Bedi, Roger Moore in the documentary on the making of Octopussy, he says he was like talking about Kabir Bedi because Kabir is a handsome actor with this tall frame and this stunning looking face, this really handsome face, and in this film too, just really just he has a great physical presence. And I think Roger Moore in the not commentary, but in the documentary, he's saying, Kabir Bedi was a real heartthrob in Italy, and he said Italy, and I always thought that was that a mistake? Did he mean to say India? Because Kabir Bedi, I understood, was or is, he has great filmography in terms of India, but I didn't realize until sometime later that, in fact, Kabir Bedi was also he had a lot of fame from an appearance he made in a series that was in Italy, and apparently he became very popular there as well. So, and there in Europe, and so yes, so that wasn't a mistake. I realized that Roger Moore saying he probably meant to say Italy. So that's something that I learned. So Kabir Bedi, by the way, and Gobinda, that is a great character. He bumps into VJ as Kabir Bedi, I'm sorry, as Gobinda leaves and VJ's coming down the steps of the casino earlier. And of course, that is a foreshadowing, an ominous, portentous foreshadowing into what will happen to VJ at the end. Poor VJ, by the way. He's a great character. And uh, um, what was I going to say? Yes, and so of course we have the tennis link, and he's a part-time pro at Kamal's tennis club, and so we understand that that's a harkening back or an homage to the actual tennis pro aspect, which is a lovely touch. And you have the tennis game thing there that is a visual gag, which is great. And then you have the bumping into the two, and you have. I like how VJ as a character is sort of the bridge between Bond and Q. He's friends with both. He says, "I'll give you a hand, Q. Don't worry about it." And like he's laughing when Bond is doing the zoom ins into the using the camera and the liquid crystal TV there, not so subtly, by the way. And then so I like that he's very friendly, and it's just that makes it even more tragic when what happens to VJ happens, and it's such a horrible demise too. We don't see anything on screen, but the assumption being it's a very horrific one, and it's all at the hands of of Gobinda, which makes Gobinda even more of a dastardly villain. So that's or I should say, when I say at the hands of Gobinda, Gobinda orders the killing to be had, because of course we know that this is done by the the guy with the saw, or the circular saw. Okay, so that makes Gobinda such a terrifying villain, but he's not without his own vulnerabilities. So he tends to be very aggressive, but he, for instance, when Bond gets the steam or the smoke from when they're fighting underneath the train, he's like ah or something, and he is fooled when Bond and VJ escape through the poster on the streets of Delhi, and so he has his vulnerabilities, which I like, or like when he's hunting and Bond is able to unstrap the carriage and he falls out, and so but he's still ready to go, and that's the that's Gobinda. What a great character. I think he's one of the best. He is one of the best indeed. Now, in terms of ranking the hench persons of the villains of Bond, at least during the Roger Moore era, you got so many, so many. It's really tough, is it not? I mean, he says he's the Jaws of Octopussy, although Jaws, we know what happens to Jaws during his tenure in Spy and then Moonraker. And so it would have been interesting to see a match between Jaws and Gobinda. Wow, who would win out in that? I don't know, but or Gobinda versus Mayday. Oh my goodness, that would have been so cool. Or who else? Who else are the henchmen? Um, oh gosh, who would be a good henchman for uh, Knick-Knack versus Gobinda? That would have been interesting. Or maybe something else would be like, I don't know, Baron Samdi, or Teehee versus Gobinda. That would have been interesting. Although maybe Gobinda might have had the edge. I'm not sure. It's something about Gobinda. I think he has superhuman strength. I think in terms of the crushing of the dice. I don't think. I don't know. I'm not able to crush dice like that. But I don't even have regular human strength, let alone superhuman strength. So maybe someone who has, say, an average level of strength would be able to crush dice. I don't know. I've never tried. Have you tried to crush dice with your bare hand? If so, please let me know in the comments. Um, and let me know if it's indeed possible. Anyway, going back to the comments, let's see. So speaking of dice, Arthur says to destroy dice. Yes. Um, yes. And Oron says, I believe they use the same scream in the Living Daylights when that goon. Yes. Um, oh gosh, why am I forgetting? Oh gosh, why am I forgetting? I'm it's not. Why am I? The Living Daylights. Why am I forgetting his name? Oh gosh, it's not Costco. Why? Someone please remind me. What's his name? Um, in the Living Daylights. This always happens to me. I'm sorry. I have to. Let me just check this. This is going to. I always do this. Always something happens, and just lose, forget. I get forgetful in my old age. What's his name? Here we go. Necros. Thank you, Necros. Sorry. Okay. Terrible. How could I forget Necros? But okay. Let's see. Um, Cooper Glover says, I love the John Barry music. Yes, the John Barry music is delightful. It is the it's one of the best it's one of the best scores. I mean, I say that with all the Barry scores. Every Barry score you have in the series, you say it's one of the best, right? And it's true. It's it's oh, I love the mix, and I love the different themes. The bomb theme, the da, 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 that's very much, that gives me 007 theme vibes. Not the James Bond theme, but the 007 theme. Da, 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 da. That it's very similar to the bomb theme that's used in the latter half of the film. And then the fight scene with da, 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 da. I love that. That's a great little cue. And the use of the James Bond theme when Bond is going down the banister and he's using the machine gun and he sees the whole thing at the end, and there's another great Roger Moore eye acting when he sees, I gotta shoot that, otherwise, oh, it's gonna hit me where I don't want it to hit me. You know, so that's so it's that great eye. It's all in that moment with his eyes. It's great stuff. And let's see. Uh, and so let's see. Yeah, so the John Barry score is wonderful. The theme song, as I was mentioning earlier, I think is very delightful, underrated, and it helps also. It is embellished, or it embellishes the wonderful Binder titles as well. You know, the whole thing with the and so are you. That reminds me of the great, I mentioned before, but that thing with, you see Roger Moore and his image in the titles and the arms wrapped around her. That always reminds me of that scene. The Diamonds Are Forever, the Sean Connery when he's in Amsterdam. One more time for just that. I love that. That's great. Yeah. So so yeah. Let's see. Um, Oh yes, Erwin says Orlov's secret map and remote control are very funny as his Gogol's obvious annoyance. Yes, he's holding this gray thing which he pushes the button. I want to open the map. I want to show off this map. And Orlov, and he says at the very end, right, even in his last dying gasp, he just won't give up his dream, which is amazing. He's like, tomorrow I will be a hero of the Soviet Union. And it's this great pathetic thing. He's just trying. He must get to that train, and after he's shot, he's just like in this desperate, pathetic attempt at trying to get to that train. It's just, oh my goodness, this is what a character Orlov is. And then Gogol as well has a great counterpoint. We mentioned in the now lost to time and space, the live stream of For Your Eyes Only, we mentioned how Gogol in that film is kind of the villain of that film, because he's the one who is essentially ordering the retrieval of the ATAC. And so the Soviet forces are trying to retrieve the ATAC and the British forces are trying to retrieve the ATAC. And so they're colliding. And that's due in essence to Gogol's orders. So he's kind of the villain in that piece. Here, he is now reaffirming his good guy status, as it were. He is on the side of supporting disarmament talks with NATO, and also which we assume has the element of peace and the idea of socialist aims will be achieved peaceably, I think. And then we have the idea where he is talking in M's office at the end, where he says that his government categorically denies that the incident ever occurred, although they would request the return of one of their prized artifacts, the Romanov star, which is now hanging on the bedpost of Octopussy's bed. So I don't know if they're ever going to get it back, by the way. But anyway, it's not just the Romanov star. Yeah, okay, actually, no. He would have retrieved all of the real jewelry, right? Because the Mercedes-Benz that went into the water in the trunk had the stash of jewels, the actual jewels that they were trying to get away with, except Bond had taken the Romanov star because Mishka was looking at the Romanov star for some reason as he was like having this welding device or something, and then that's how Bond was able to get the Romanov star after he was able to kill Mishka. Okay, and then he gave the Romanov star to Octopussy, maybe unwillingly, when he's at the circus tent in the U.S. Air Force Base at the very end there. So does that convince you? And then that she shows an Octopussy, and Octopussy's looking at it, and Octopussy's of course surprised at that moment because she thought he was dead, and she thought that he was eaten by alligators, but no, he's very much alive. And I would be surprised too. Not only is this person that I thought was dead alive, but he's alive and he's wearing clown makeup, and also he's giving me the Romanov star, And he's telling me that there's a bomb in the cannon that's set to explode in 90 seconds. So one, two, three, four things that would make me really surprised. And I think Octopussy takes it really well, considering all this information dump that's been given to her at this precise moment. So anyway, yeah. Let's see here. Seth Wall says the egg is just the tip of the tentacle. Very good. Yes. And Damfool says M being Hargreaves is a long held fan theory that fits. It's never been confirmed, but it would make sense. Yes, yes. So Hargreaves is, of course, where we saw Robert Brown in Spy Who Loved Me and Ark Royal, wasn't it? Yes. And so we're not sure. There hasn't been any acknowledgement on screen if this is indeed the same character. It could be a different character because, as we know too, in the world of Eon's James Bond films, the same actors can play different characters. That's true even of Octopussy, right? Miss Anders and Octopussy. I always thought that they were the same character when I was a little kid growing up, and it was always a shock to see the Man with the Golden Gun and what happens in that film, which is earlier in the filmography, of course. But Octopussy is here, and she is Maud Adams playing two different characters in two separate films. So it's perfectly feasible to consider the possibility that Robert Brown's M is a different character than Hargreaves, but they could be the same. So that's the theory that's being referred to, I think, by Damfool. Well done. Yes. Just going through the chat here. Oh, Damien says, Fanning says, have you gone mad? Yes. I love, yeah, Fanning and the auction. And he's just, oh, and I love how Fanning is not, he's a little bit slow on the uptake when Bond is like, oh, the property of a lady, oh, there are a lot of ladies here. Oh, oh. So you know how Roger Moore's Bond is, what his mind is probably thinking about, that, oh, there are a lot of ladies here. And I love how Fanning is responding in a completely like oblivious nature. He's totally oblivious to the sort of sexual innuendo that I think Bond is hinting at. And he said, they don't have to be here in person. They could always, have someone represent them by proxy. So it just, and then of course when Magda comes in, he says, "Oh, there is a lady." Oh, and Fanning then picks up a little bit of vibe. No, James, stick to the topic at hand. So stick to the business at hand. So it's great. Fanning, what a great character. Maybe we could spot the seller. Yes. This fake has caused enough trouble. Yes. Oh, Damfool says, I always assumed that Bond had to have the fake in his lap and then pull off the switch when bringing it around the program. Yes, that's the only way he could have done it. Yes, yes, he had to have had it there. Amazing. Yes. It's amazing. That's an amazing switch. I agree. Kazuma. Kazuma says, hello, Daisuke. I am a big fan of your channel. Thank you very much, Kazuma. That's very kind of you. Thank you. I hope you're well. Thank you. Okay, just scrolling down. Dolberg says hello. Rider 18, Rider Rated 18, you said you're off to bed. So good night, my friend. Thank you so much, my dear, dear friend. And, Rider Rated 18, thank you so much. Thank you. Our dear friend and film enthusiast and wrestling fan. Snap into a Slim Jim. Oh, yeah. Dig it. Nice. I'll talk to you soon, my dear friend. And let's see. Magnus is here. Hello. Dolberg says this needs to be on Criterion. That would be great. That would be great. Let's see. How are we on time? It's 8:53. I can go on for a little bit more, but we can start. There are a couple more things. I haven't spoken about Kamal Khan yet. Kamal Khan! Haven't spoken about Khan yet, but actually, let me speak about Khan, Kamal Khan villains. Okay, and we'll talk about Octopussy and Magda, and then Kamal Khan. We've spoken a little bit about Gobinda and Orlov and Gogol already. So, Kamal Khan, this is a very, very villainous villain, very sneaky villain. He wants to double cross. We think it's possible that he's actually wanting to double cross everyone. He wants to double cross Orlov, we think. He definitely wants to double cross Octopussy twice, if not more times. I don't know. He is apparently on some kind of power. I mean, the power dynamic between Octopussy and uh, Kamal Khan is one where he's somewhat subordinate to Octopussy. She seems to be the one giving him the orders, and so I'm not sure what that is. Maybe Kamal Khan is not as wealthy as one might assume based on his appearance of wealth, and that's probably due to the fact that he is a counterfeiter. He has these plates, we understand at the end, where he can counterfeit his own money in various currency denominations. And so this is probably an indication of the real status of his wealth. In other words, it's probably a wealth that might seem from the outside to be quite vast, but in fact, it's probably a wealth that's based on lies. It's based on a kind of counterfeit. And that's also indication of maybe why he is involved in this counterfeit jewelry smuggling scheme to begin with. Now, we understand, however, that Octopussy has, as she mentioned, her own business empire, shipping, hotels, carnivals, and circuses. Now, that is a great combination in terms, I mean, that's a great holding company to have, like Octopussy Holdings. Yeah, and then you have its own subsidiary, like the shipping part, and then the hotels part, and then the carnivals, and then the circuses. So, and so probably Octopussy's wealth is, or power and influence is probably more than Kamal Khan's. Hence the subordinate relationship that he has via to her. Which means also they need her network. That makes more sense too, because they need her business network in order to smuggle the jewels over the border and also to smuggle the bomb over into the West. So she has a lot of business influence. We can also assume that she therefore has a source of wealth as well that probably potentially rivals or maybe even exceeds Kamal Khan's, especially if we consider the possibility that Kamal Khan's wealth is in fact premised upon counterfeit. Okay. So in that way, if we assume those, or even if we don't assume those, we can still see from the basis of what we see directly on screen that Kamal Khan is a very sneaky character. He thinks only of himself. He's very much selfish, and he's not above killing others, killing his own people in order to achieve his ends. Even that whole thing at the airplane when he's ordering Gobinda to go out and get him. Go. There's a little bit of coldness to that. And so that is suggestive of the fact that he's caring only about himself. Oh, what a great villain. And also to top it off, how he pronounces the name Octopussy. In the documentary, it's mentioned how Albert Broccoli was so keen. He was so happy whenever Louis Jourdan would pronounce the name Octopussy, and cut to the shot where Octopussy is confronting Kamal Khan in the palace after the bomb was the explosion was avoided, and she's confronting him, and she says, "You left me to be killed along with thousands of innocent people," and then Louis Jourdan says, "Octopussy, Octopussy." And then earlier in the film, he pronounces it a little bit different. He doesn't put the emphasis on the first syllable, oh. He puts the emphasis on the third syllable, pu. So Octopussy, or Octopussy. Ah, it's great. And I love Roger Moore's impersonation of Louis Jourdan saying the word Octopussy. And he says, "Oh, Cubby, you love the way." I can't do Roger Moore very well. "Oh, Cubby, you love the way," that he would say, "Octopussy." That's great stuff. Anyway, so that's Kamal Khan. What a great villain he is. And then the plane, when it's going there again, it's just like Toro at the beginning. The filmmakers can't help it. He's got to give us that one extra shot of them in the final moments of their life, in the panic before death, Toro's like, and then explodes. And then the same thing with Kamal Khan in Airplane. Boom! Same thing. My goodness, that's ruthless on the part of the editors and filmmakers. My goodness. But I guess he deserved it because he was a really bad villain. And then the whole thing with the hunt and we have him. You know, Mr. Bond is a very rare breed, soon to be made extinct. But that's one of the weaknesses of Kamal Khan's character. He assumes too much, right? When Bond is racing towards the base, as Kamal Khan and Govinda are going in the opposite direction, they see Bond. Oh, that's Bond. He's good. He'll be late, and we'll be rid of him too. That's what he says. So he assumes that he will be late, and the bomb will explode, and Bond will also be killed. Of course, that's not what happens. The same thing too when he sees nothing on the side of the plane, and he thinks, "Oh, Bond has fallen off the plane." Ah ha ha ha. So he assumes too much too quickly. So that's probably his weakness. But he's still a great villain. And again, villains are supposed to have weaknesses, right? So. Let's see. And speaking of, and then we have to mention Octopussy and Magda. So these characters are set up essentially to be antagonists or even villains. Octopussy is also possibly a villain. At least that's what we can ascertain based on her associations with Kamal Khan, and then by extension with Orlov. And then we see her doing these criminal acts of jewelry smuggling. And the same thing too with Magda. Magda is with Kamal Khan. She's obviously working with him or for him. She is very intelligent. She's very sharp. Remember when Bond has escaped his cell, goes into Magda's room, and then goes out. Magda, there's a shot of her looking out the doorway, so she knows what he's doing. But interestingly enough, she doesn't alert anyone, which is an interesting little detail. So on the one hand, these two characters are acting on the villain side, but there are some indications of their feelings of wanting to go on, say, the good side, for lack of a better phrase. So one indication is this little shot of Magda, and there's a rapport, or there's this chemistry between her and Bond. And Seth Walsh mentioned the scene earlier in the chat about, that's my little Octopussy, referring to the tattoo, and the whole eye acting from Bond. He's like, and then that's okay, right? And then and then we have Octopussy herself, who is the villain, or she is kind of the villain, but then she has this backstory in terms of Major Dexter Smythe and what happened to him, which is also a callback to Ian Fleming's writings. And then we have the relationship between Bond and Octopussy developing. Speaking of which, I must say that I love the chemistry between Magda and Bond. Roger Moore, Christina Wayborn. I think they have really great chemistry. Magda is a wonderful character, and I love her dancing at the end. She's got I love the bit I love the most of her dancing at the end is like this bit. That's so cool. That's so. And then Octopussy gives the signal, and then they just attack all the guards, and then she attacks with her dress there. I mean, her dress or the shawl or whatever, and she can whip the guard, and the guard is out. That's like Largo in the towel, right? And just don't give Largo a towel, and don't give Magda like this shawl or something, because they're deadly in the hands of those characters. But okay, so we have this Magda, and then of course she has a great cute, we have no time for later perhaps. So okay, so that's a great character there. Also, she has this physical prowess. She has a kind of a cleverness about her. There's a bit where she playfully steals the wallet, and I better give it back. And that's a playful banter. And she's very sharp. She's very intelligent. She's observant. So that's a great character. And she's the one when they're in the car and the train, when all the ladies are there, and the one lady is juggling cups, and the guy who's working is like, don't juggle the cups. And it shifts to her, and she's she's the one who stops and notices something's going on, something's afoot. So it's an indication of her being very observant, and so that's a great type of character trait. And then we have the character of Octopussy, and then Octopussy is what a I mean, it's a great to see the return of Maud Adams, as I was indicating earlier. The chemistry, the screen chemistry between Roger Moore and Maud Adams is unbelievable. It's so wonderful. There's just a great rapport that they have together. And I think Roger Moore commented on this too, about how, of all the leading ladies in his films, as Roger Moore, as James Bond, Maud Adams had special rapport with Maud Adams. And I can see that for sure. And there's this moment where there's a little bit of a, he says, "I'm not for hire," and she makes an overture to him. "Why don't you work with me? I'd love you. I'd love to. Let's talk about the future. I'm not for hire." Oh, and she's offended by this, and she says, I don't have to explain to you, a paid assassin, what I am. And she storms off into the other room, and then Roger Moore goes and then has a camera movement, and then she turns and then embraces her. And she resists. He's no, and then he says, "No, you're right. We are two of a kind," which is a line from the song, right? And then they have their embrace, and they have the wonderful Octopussy bed and everything. What a volcanic romantic moment that is. Absolutely volcanic. And it's capped off, of course, by their scene at the end, and Maud Adams giving perhaps what is the great "Oh, James" line delivery, I think, in any Bond film. I don't know. And it's "Oh, James." Whatever that means at the end, who knows? I mean, we cut back to the boats. We're not sure what that maybe, Bond. It's like, fell out of his bed. "Oh, James!" Maybe that was it. And then it goes da da da. Although I think it's probably something else. But anyway, this is right. Maud Adams, great performance and a great character. And I love the way that it's complex. She has these feelings for Bond, and yet she wants to carry out her plot, which involves Orlov and Kamal Khan, and she is a smuggler at heart. It's like Tiffany Case. Tiffany Case is just, she wants the diamonds. So all she cares about essentially is the diamond. How are we going to get the diamonds from down there? That's what she cares about. So it's almost like you have a little bit of Tiffany Case. You have, of course, the whole deal about, is she what is her allegiance? On the good side or the bad side. So there's a little bit of that mysterious nature, and we've seen a lot of characters like this that change sides, maybe in one direction or the other. Maybe a good character ends up being bad, or vice versa. A bad character ends up being good, and those turns are very satisfying, especially if it's a bad character ends up being a good character. I think this is satisfying, probably one of the most satisfying in the series overall. If we were to talk about those character turns, probably Mayday in A View to a Kill. But it's that element, I think, is part of the Octopussy character. And then there's a great physicality to her when she's having the dart gun in the palace scene, and she's shooting, and she can handle that very well. And also when she has the gun and she shoots open the case of the cannon at the end there. You have to remember too that Octopussy and Magda, they understand, their thinking is that inside the cannon are the jewels that they're wanting to smuggle. And if they open that up, they risk exposing their smuggling operation to the US military. And that's why Magda says he'll destroy the entire operation. That's the whole point of that line, is because if he exposes that, then they're done as smugglers. They're going to get arrested. But she says, "No, no, no, I believe Bond at this moment." And she's the one who opens it, right? Not Bond. It's she who takes the gun out and both. Although you have to think, maybe she didn't know there was a bomb inside, but we know, and you think, "Oh my goodness, you're pointing a gun at a box that has an atomic bomb in it. Oh, please be careful." But of course, fortunately, her aim was great, and it opened the thing okay, and we saw the timer device. Okay, so that is an indication of just how great the Octopussy character is. It's a great. There's a great way she carries herself. She has her own vision, her own purpose, her own mission. she knows what she wants to do, and that she also wants to have Bond somehow be a part of that. And the chemistry between Maud Adams and Roger Moore is electrifying. That's so just kudos all around to these great performances. And just one more time before I go to the chat and then wrap up the discussion, Roger Moore. I just have to say this: Roger Moore, Roger Moore. I mean, what did Terrence Young say about Dr. No? The secret of there are three things about the secret of the success of Dr. No. It was Sean Connery, Sean Connery, Sean Connery. Well, here we have to say, for Octopussy, it's Roger Moore, Roger Moore, Roger Moore. I cannot say enough how great Roger Moore is. He is utterly splendid. When he's in the casino, in the backgammon game and he's introducing himself, he says, Bond. James Bond. I think that's one of my favorite James Bond deliveries by Roger Moore. It also has the thing where he's going from right to left, which is very reminiscent of how Bond walked from right to left, and he gave that line, "My name's Bond, James Bond," in the film Live and Let Die, when he's in the when he's meeting Solitaire and Mr. Big for the first time in New York, and the I mentioned the all the ooh and the eye acting. He's able to handle all the double entendre sexual innuendo lines so perfectly and so classy. There is also that adolescent, what is to borrow Q's phrase, adolescent antic behavior in terms of his Bond's sexual appetites. Let's put it that way. And so there's this sort of boyish. Almost lowbrow humor, but also highbrow humor at the same time. He handles quips and one-liners so effectively. He handles the physical nature of his aspect of the performance so well, and he pulls it off so well. And it's an all-around splendid performance. It's supported, of course, by so many filmmakers, the editing, the stunts, the music that enhances all the mood and the suspense in the scenes. Of course, and of course, part of that too is undeniably Roger Moore and his acting abilities and his charm. He is one of the best. And so this is another a great example of this. It has a mix of everything. There's the campy, funny moments. There's the serious moments. There are the over the top fantasy action adventure cinema movie moments. There's also the Ian Fleming writing tie-in moments, and so it's all here in this great package. Again, is it a perfect film? No, that it's not a perfect film in my eyes. Um, I think it might have to do with some of the depictions, but for its time, we can see what it is, and focusing back on the film and its merits, I think its merits are very, very strong indeed, very strong. And there are a lot of things too that are underrated, as I think Damien and others were mentioning in the chat about, for instance, the airplane sequence. That's a great sequence. That is such a great sequence, and it's underrated. It's not spoken about a lot. Um, and the song, I think the Rita Coolidge All Time High song is probably not mentioned a lot in the best Bond songs. And probably for me too, I admit it won't be in my top 5 favorite Bond songs, but it's great. Again, it's that moment, the little guitar twang. So hold on tight, let the fight begin. And goes into that strange chord at that moment when she says begin. Oh, that's great. And then, of course, we're an all-time high, and it ends with James Bond will return in From a View to a Kill. So there's another quirky aspect to this film. That's a film that we know the title has changed, and it's got everything. It's got everything. It's got its funny bits. It's got its lighthearted bits. It's got the camp moments. It's got the double entendre. It's got the suspenseful action. It's got the over-the-top villains. It's got the understandable, sympathetic villains that are able to turn certain situations into a funny thing or a sad, tragic thing. Note the scenes with VJ; those are very dark and sad and tragic. And then the suspenseful moments with the bomb, and then you have all the resolutions, and then and then again, in the center of all the proceedings is Roger Moore. Oh, the great, great, great Roger Moore. Fantastic, fantastic stuff. This is the film Octopussy. Oh, and one of the great Roger Moore isms, and we get it aplenty in this great film Octopussy. Okay, so that's, I think, pretty much all, or mostly all, that I was planning to say about Octopussy. Hold on. Whoops. Now let me just go back here to the chat, and then we will be on our way. Whoops. What's going on here? Something is not right. Give me one moment. Okay, great. Oops, sorry about this. Here we go. Okay, now just going back to the chat here. So I think we can begin. You can have some more. You have some more comments on film Octopussy. Please feel free to leave them in the chat. That's great. Sorry, I got cut off here in the chat, so I can't see everything. So there's only a certain place that I can read, but I'll try to cover as many of the remaining comments as I can. And let's see. All right, so if I skip over your name or your comment, I apologize. Let's see. Oh, Zyrother doing such great work as always, handling the poll. So thank you. So this is your opportunity, unless I don't, is it closed now? I'm not sure, but this is your opportunity, or you have or had an opportunity to choose the next Bond film that we would discuss. And so, okay, I'm not sure what it is. Has it been decided yet? I am so eagerly anticipating what it could be. All right. Damien says, all and each Bond villain is different. I don't really have any problem with any of the official casting choices. Let's see. Timothy says, you have a nasty habit of surviving. You know what they say, and then Roger Moore's, you know what they say about the fittest, and then Octopussy. I would enjoy the opportunity of taking care of Mr. Bond personally. I will take care of Mr. Bond personally myself, or something like that. That's what. And then they have the shot of, okay, and he turns and leaves, and then there's the dark, shadowed look on Louis Jourdan's face. And he's like, "Oh, I really want Bond dead," and that leads to the hiring of the assassins. Earns a soon to me. Yeah, Damien says, "Spend the money quickly, Mr. Bond." I intend to. Kamal Khan. Boom. Yes, that's my name. And he gives a little nod too. Yeah. My security and yours. And it's got a close up into Gobinda's eyes there. It's like, those are great eye close ups. I mean, they rival Sheena Easton's eye close ups in For Your Eyes Only. That's for sure. 5 bags of popcorn. Hello. BJ actually beat Bjorn Borg at tennis. Wow. You know, I was I don't follow tennis anymore, but I followed tennis so much when I was a kid because my father was a big tennis fan. And let's see, so this was around the time of Ivan Lendl and Boris Becker and Steffi Graf. This was around the time before, I was into it before Monica Seles appeared on the scene. And let's see, I remember I saw live, what was it, the Wimbledon final? I forget the year it was, but Steffi Graf was in the Wimbledon final, and someone from the stand said, "Steffi, will you marry me?" And then everyone was laughing, and that sort of threw Steffi Graf off of her rhythm a little bit, and she was just and then she couldn't help but smile, and she laughed, and then she turned and she shouted, "How much money do you have?" And it was a great great moment. So yeah. So anyway, yeah, I don't follow tennis that much anymore, unfortunately. Oh gosh. Oh gosh, I forget some of the name. Oh my goodness, it's been so long. But like Pete Sampras, I was still following tennis a little bit during the reign of Pete Sampras. And gosh, um, um, oh, Stefan Edberg. Yes, that was I was very much a fan of Edberg. I loved his. He had a type of artistry on the court, especially his serve and volley game was incredible. Um, anyway, sorry about that. So, okay, and uh, gosh, anyway. Oh, Jim is here. Hello, it's nice to see you. All right, and um, five bags of popcorn says, haha, Daisuke is a madman. Thank you, thank you. Let's see. As Erwin says, referring to Magda, she also steals the general's wallet. Yes. Uh, yes, Jim says the women actors were embarrassed to say what the film's title was. Yes, that's indicated in the in the documentaries. Of, oh my, that title! Oh my, yeah, it's a pretty provocative title. That's for sure. Damfool says, that's the moment I point to when people say the 80s films have no emotional drama. Bond's confrontation of Octopussy is incredibly. Yes, the moment and the all-time high, the instrumental version is on the track. And that's where, that's, you're right, we are two of a kind. That is such a volcanic moment. Oh, and the close-up, and it's like, no, and then just seeing the struggle on Maud Adams' face, and then cutting to Roger Moore, and that look of, it's that there's this sort of just romance in the air. It's like, you're right, we are two of a kind. Wow. Wow, unbelievable. And that makes you believe that Bond has some kind of emotional attachment to Octopussy. And that's why, for instance, when he goes into the circus tent, he doesn't first go to the Ken, he first goes to Octopussy. That's why he is so into rescuing Octopussy at the end from the clutches of Kamal Khan and Gobinda. That's why he will go to, you stop at nothing to get to that plane. So, uh, great stuff. That is, oh my goodness, great. I mean, he could have let her go. I mean, but oh, right. He says, Q, don't really go up, go up. He swings, and then I love the turn that he does, and he shoots the guy, and he uses the tiger. It's the same throwback to when we saw the tiger earlier in the film, and then the great James Bond theme as he says, going down the banister, and he sees, and I mentioned before, but the eye acting, ah, that's a great eye act. So top three eye acting moments, and so that's probably number one. Number two is probably the moment when he's Toro and he gives the salute, and he's like, that's number two. Maybe number three, although it's a tie for second, perhaps, is after Mishka tries to fight him with the flame, and he's like, that's great. But yes. Um, I hope I got it right. Is it if I mixed it up during the course of this discussion, if I said Mishka when I was meant to say Grishka, just let me know and I'll try to correct myself next time. Yeah. Yes, Damien said, and Q finally got appreciated by the ladies. Yes, yes, and that's a great point too, because here he's like, oh, and man just, oh, and Q's like, oh, no time for later, perhaps, and you can assume what probably happened that evening, and or is it morning? I'm not sure. That's the thing too about the film Octopus. I don't know if it's morning or night. I don't like. Does Kamal ever sleep? I don't know. He's up at night. He's eating the eyeball, and he's still up. He's reading. He's in his tux, and it's morning. All of a sudden, he's go out hunting. I don't know. And here it's morning or evening. I'm not sure. But in any event, at the final assault on the palace, and Magda is so lovingly embracing Q, you can probably assume that probably there was some good times that could have been had by all. And then the next film, View to a Kill, when Q has that robot dog, that surveillance dog, and M's like, what's Bond doing? Q covers for Bond. He's like, oh, Bond is doing something quite improper. He doesn't say, he's only just cleaning up a few details. That's it. So maybe there is an understanding between Q and Bond at this point. Q is like, working with Bond does have its good times, and maybe I should be thankful for this relationship. So maybe that's some kind of indication. And in fact, that we'll see the great development of the Q Bond relationship reach a great moment or level in the film License to Kill. But that is a discussion, as I say, for another time. Okay. So, okay, Cyrotha, thank you. So the next film will be Tomorrow Never Dies. Okay, thank you very much for everyone who voted. Tomorrow Never Dies. Excellent, excellent. Um, I love Tomorrow Never Dies. I think it's to borrow the phrase from the villain, right? I think it's outstanding. Um, Oh, and speaking of that, in that scene in Tomorrow Never Dies, when he's talking to all of his whatever around the world, one of the people is Michael G. Wilson. Michael G. Wilson also appears in this film Octopussy, right? Oh, when Bond is on the boat and he's, "Oh, are you with our group?" He's like, "No, I'm with the economy tour." And I think Michael G. Wilson is there, and he cuts to Bond saying "so long" and the boat going away, and you hear a little bit of added dialogue on this. Oh, let's take a picture of that guy with the turban or something like that. Just some you know, line, but it's that kind of that's yeah. Michael G. Wilson appears in on the films, and I think that's where he appears here. So anyway, um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Schlock Horror. Elliot Carver is my favorite villain. Outstanding. You're fired. He says to the poor woman who's working who can speak all these languages, and he's like, "Oh, you're fired." Gosh, I hate to work for Elliot Carver. My goodness. But anyway, yeah, and Surrender, Katie Lang, yes. Um, and it speaking of the more isms, we also mentioned briefly of the Brosnan isms. Brosnan isms, here we have the chin and also the laugh. This has one of the great Brosnan isms ever, in my view. I'll mention it briefly here, which is Backseat Driver, and the bit where he presses the button and then the flat tires, which have been flattened because it's driven over those spikes that he had to unleash from the car itself. It's driven over the spikes. Now all the four tires are flat. He presses a button and the tires self-inflate. The shot on Brosnan's face in the back there through the glass. That's like the best part of the film for me. It's great. But anyway, yeah, it's look forward to that one. I still remember. I think I think the biggest thrill for me when I saw that film wasn't actually the film itself, but when I first heard the soundtrack of that, and I heard the soundtrack, and that was amazing to hear the. And you could buy them on CD, so you would go to the CD store and you'd go to the CD listening stations. And Tomorrow Never Dies was on a CD listening station, so I just put on the headphones. I just listened. This was amazing. This was the first David Arnold soundtrack, and it had Surrender. And then the chills that I got when I heard the song Surrender. My goodness, yes. And it also has the great like the I'm not perfect when it comes to my own English grammar, I admit, but here we have when Bond is being briefed in the car with M and Moneypenny, and he's talking about Mrs. Carver, Ellie Carver's wife, played by Kelly Hatcher. You have to, what is the phrase, pump her for information, and you just have to decide how much pumping is needed. And then Bond says to Moneypenny, "If only that were true of you and I, Moneypenny." I think he's meant to say, "Oh, if only that were true of you and me, Moneypenny." I think. Anyone who's an expert on English grammar, please let me know. But that's a prepositional phrase. The preposition is of, and so the object of the preposition has to be me, not I think. So anyway, that also reminds me of the issue of grammar, potentially, possibly. Again, it depends on how you interpret it and listen to it in the lyric of Live and Let Die. But anyway, yeah. Um, let's see. Okay, so I think yes, we are. We are. Oh yes, yes. So uh, the old CD stations. Yes, yes. The song samples. Yes, yes. Those were the days, right? I don't know. I guess now, even if they had them, if they had CD stations now, I would think that you wouldn't have them anymore now with the current health pandemic situation. But yeah, it's what a great what a great song that is. So I always go back and forth. Which is the great like closer song or non-main theme song of a Bond film? Surrender is up there. I go back. It's oh gosh, it's either Surrender or it's If There Was a Man. For me, with maybe Where Is Everybody Gone? Oh, it could one of those three. Oh my goodness, I don't know. How do you feel if you had to rank those three songs? If There Was a Man, The Pretenders, If There Was a Man, or The Pretenders, Where Has Everybody Gone, or Katie Lang, Surrender. How would you rank them? Probably for me it would be very close, but If There Was a Man, Surrender, Where's Everybody Gone? But that's very close. Yeah, that's very close. If yes, thank you, Kubrick Lover. If There Was a Man, number one. That's great. That is such a romantic song. I love that song. Ah, incidentally, after Tomorrow Never Dies, what films do we have left to discuss? We have Die Another Day, License to Kill, Spectre. Is that it? And then Never Say Never Again, and then Casino Royale, right? 67. Is that it? I think as far as the ones that we have to discuss. Oh, and then also the redo, For Your Eyes Only redo. So counting the redo, that's six. I think we can do this and time it so that once the new film, No Time to Die, is released, I hope soon in whatever form, maybe we can have the No Time to Die live stream discussion as well. That's what I'm thinking. I wasn't when I first started this. To be perfectly honest, I wasn't even thinking of that because I was assuming that the film would be open on its initial release date. But as we know, things happened, and so it got delayed and delayed and delayed. And so now we have this live stream discussion, which has been going on, I think, for about a year now. And so I think we can time it so we can cover No Time to Die, which will be really interesting. Yes. Oh gosh. So that'll be that. That's kind of what I'm thinking about at the moment. Or Operation Kid or 50s Casino Royale. That's a good point. I don't. I'm maybe. Mm, I'm kind of debating. Maybe I don't know if a live stream. Maybe we could focus on the films or the sort of feature length films, and so let's focus, if it's okay with everyone, let's focus on those remaining Eon films, and then Never Say Never Again and Casino Royale 60s, and then No Time to Die. And then after that, I mean, we still have a number of films left to go, but after that, I mean, I'd love to continue this live stream discussion thing going. I was thinking, I don't know, just to give some heads up, I was thinking there's no necessary crossover that everyone who's a James Bond film fan is automatically a fan of the Star Trek films, but I'm thinking of maybe doing the Star Trek films as a topic of discussion for live streams after this James Bond discussion series is reaching its end. So but I'm still thinking about that. But we'll see what happens. Um, uh, so yeah, there's just so much. Okay, interesting. So we'll see. All right, so I'll stick around for another maybe 5 minutes or so, and then I have to go. So, but what should we? Oh, let us end the. I don't know. We always like to end the live stream with something that we discussed earlier. So I suggest we end with a Roger Moore. Oh, so you can express to me your favorite Roger Moore-ism all in the chat as we end. So I'll ask for that. Well, we're not ending quite yet, but I'll give you the cue in a few more minutes. So, but that's a. I just want to just say once again, just how great Roger Moore is here. Oh, and I forgot to mention one thing too about the Roger Moore. I know that Roger Moore expressed a lot of regret over a very, I would say it's a pretty controversial scene actually in The Man with the Golden Gun, in terms of how he treats a little boy who's merely trying to make a living selling wooden elephants, and just pushes him off the boat in this really cruel manner after promising him so much money. And I know that Roger Moore expressed a lot of regret over this. I mean, it's a scene of fiction, of course, and we understand this, but still, it's just the spirit of it. It seems a bit too mean. And so I always there's a scene in Octopussy where he's taking the money that he's just won from Kamal Khan. He says, "I prefer cash." He has the check cashed. He has it cashed. He gives some of the cash to right. He gives it around. He keeps it for himself. He has some of one of the piles of cash in his coat pocket, and then he gets stabbed. But that prevents him from being injured, which reminds me a little bit of From Russia with Love, the novel. For anyone who knows the novel version, not the film version, but the novel version of From Russia with Love, something happens between Bond and Red Grant. It has a similar, not exactly the same, but it's a similar type of thing. And then also when he's throwing the money in the air, he's a rupee. That's a way for him to get some more time in order to be able to get extra seconds to escape. I know, but there's just something about this in terms of it, like oh, it would have been nice if there was a moment like that where he could have given them some kind of money or something to the little boy and the man with the golden gun, and like, here, I'll give you the money, I'll pay for all the, and give me all the elephants, and he's throwing the elephants at everyone. That would have been an interesting thing. And he's like, oh, give me more, how much, here, and he's just throwing. That would have been really cool. And they're working together, and then be, see you later, kid, thanks. There, you paid for 20, but you only used 10. Well, what about the rest of it? You keep it, you deserved it or something. That would have been such a great heartwarming thing. The man with the golden gun says, he just throws him off the boat. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to owe you something, but oh well. And yeah, yeah, yeah. Cooper Glover's. I know that Roger Moore didn't like throwing the kid in the water. Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. Or Erwin says, "I will go with the Roger Moore resurrection scene from Octopussy." Whoa! Yes, you're right. Whoa! There's that. There's also there's a Tarzan yell. Um, uh, and there's some great line. I think it's, for me though, it'll be, yes. Oh, oh, that's so great. That's great. Um, yeah, one of the great moments. Roger Moore is the best. Ah, Roger Moore is the best. Yes. And Cooper Cover says, the Tarzan yell draws too much attention to itself. For me, that's a good point. It's a little bit too out there. Yeah. Um, Schlock Horror. Hello, my friend. The biggest regret of my life. Speaking of Columbo, I mean, we were mentioning Columbo earlier. Schlock Horror. So we were mentioning Louis Jourdan, or someone was mentioning Louis Jourdan in Columbo, and so yeah, Schlock Horror, who is a Columbo expert. Check out Schlock Horror's channel, Columbo and horror and all things cinema. Dear friend, thank you. And you say the biggest regret of my life is not going to see Roger Moore when he did a Q&A show here a few years back. He passed away the year after. Oh, well, I mean, it happens. So, but we have a lot of the films and his legacy we can enjoy, and Octopussy being one of them. Um, Incidentally, we're speaking about cover art. I love these DVDs. Don't get me wrong, but this cover art is a bit for me. I don't quite like it. It's a bit too photoshoppy for my taste, but um, and especially this is a scene. I think the helicopter was referred to earlier, asked by someone earlier. This is a scene where his helicopter is landing earlier in the film. There's no explosion. There's no fireball in that particular scene, so I'm not sure what that is all about. But anyway, um, let's see. And then Damfool says, it's one of my great regrets that I never got the chance to meet Roger, though I would have been a babbling mess. Damien says, are you with our group? No, ma'am. I'm with the economy tour. Yes. And he's like out of breath. He's like, no, man. And he's still able to say it. Oh, that's so great. That is so great. Yes. Uh, and I forgot the line, the bit of editing where he gives VJ the flute or the instrument. He said, you need this to play with your ASP, referring to the snake, and then just note the cut, the edit, how it's edited later. Yes, Damful says, I don't know why they remade that cover for the VHS. It's just way too photoshopped, and I've always felt that. Yeah, it's too photoshopped. Um, yeah, yes, and the guy in the boat that pulls him in is of course Michael G. Wilson. Yeah, yeah. Yes, the match cut. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Anyway, yes. So let us conclude here, my dear friends. Thank you so much. This has been so much fun for me. I am. I'll be perfectly honest too. I kind of got the sense over the years reading online forums that maybe Octopussy was considered by some, or a considerable some, to be on the lower tier end of the Bond series for a number of people. So um, and as I was mentioning, maybe, and I probably felt that way too to a certain degree. Although maybe I wasn't admitting it to myself at the time, but maybe I felt that way, and so I tried to explain how I felt about this film going forward. And I must say too, I'm so happy that that a lot of you also feel same or very similarly to that, and have come to this film with these impressions and viewpoints and perspectives and opinions and observations, as you always do. So thank you for so much for that. This was a lot of fun. Truly, truly a blast as always. I look forward to Tomorrow Never Dies discussion. There is so much to talk about. So I will look forward to that. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but is that the Romanov star on the corner of the bed there at the very end with Octopussy and James? I don't know. And I forgot too. I'm sorry. I'm forgetting many things. But talk about if you compare Bonds, the way that Roger Moore's Bond at the end is able to recover his physical injuries so quickly. Recall how Daniel Craig's Bond and his recovery scene in Casino Royale, and how right it was, and so just Roger Moore's recovery scene here has a kind of this parallel. It's great, and it's just a wonderful way to cap off this great adventure, which is Octopussy. So um, yeah, and so thank you so much, my dear friends, for this. I will say yes, thank you, and um, yeah, Moore's like a superhero. Yes, cheers. Thank you so much. Thank you all, and we will talk again very soon. And so, with that, my friends, thank you. And please let us end with your favorite Roger Moore ism, and I will end with mine. So, until the next stream, cheers. And oh, thank you. I'm seeing a lot of oohs in the chat. I love it. Thank you. Have a great rest of the weekend, my dear friends. This is a lot of fun. Thank you. Thank you for always giving me the opportunity. Oh! Looking forward to Pierce Brosnan. Backseat drivers. Thank you so much. I love. I love that scene. Sorry. Backseat driver scene. Oh, it's a great scene. Tomorrow Never Dies. Can't wait. But one more for the road. Oh! Thank you very much, my friends. Cheers.